Chapter 46. Make your move. Chu Fengmian's words were like a knife that cut the fifth elder's heart. As an elder, he even held the Lin Mansion's mansion protection weapon, the vast wind spear, in his hand. Chu Fengmian actually said that the fifth elder's strength was not enough for him to draw his sword. This kind of attitude was simply a form of contempt towards the fifth elder. Good. Arrogant kid. Let me see if you can still be arrogant later. The fifth elder roared, and the vast wind spear in his hand moved. As the vast wind spear danced, the surrounding wind was stirred up. Purple chi from the east. The fifth elder's spear turned and pierced towards Chu Fengmian. The power of the vast wind spear was extremely shocking. Under this spear, coupled with the fifth elder's strength, even a martial artist at the fifth level of the body refinement realm might not be able to withstand it. A gale swept down from the sky, and many of the gale condensed into miniature long spears, thrusting towards Chu Fengmian. In an instant, countless spear shadows pierced towards Chu Fengmian. This spear technique can't even withstand a single blow. Chu Fengmian glanced at the fifth elder, and his eyes were filled with disdain. In Chu Fengmian's opinion, this spear technique was full of flaws. The vast wind spear in the hands of the fifth elder was simply a waste of a heavenly treasure. Hand it over to me. Chu Fengmian shouted angrily. Chu Fengmian moved. The muscles on Chu Fengmian's body bulged as if he had turned into a ferocious beast. As of now, Chu Fengmian's body had already condensed the first drop of ancient battle dragon's blood essence. His body was no longer that of a human's. When he went all out, there was a hint of dragon's might. What a powerful aura! Chu Fengmian has just stepped into the body refinement realm. Where did he get such a terrifying aura from? In a battle between martial artists, one's aura was extremely important. Once one's aura weakened, he would lose the initiative in the following battle. Looking at Chu Fengmian's aura, even the fifth elder panicked. He could not control the vast wind spear in his hand and hesitated for a moment. Oh no! The fifth elder suddenly understood that this distraction had caused him to not be able to thrust out his spear. How could Chu Fengmian give the fifth elder a second chance? Break! Chu Fengmian clenched his right fist and smashed it towards the fifth elder. This punch shattered the gale surrounding the fifth elder and even smashed the spiritual power armor on his body, hitting him squarely in the chest. Immediately, the fifth elder's body was smashed to the ground. The vast wind spear in his hand flew out with great effort. Hand it over. Chu Fengmian looked at the vast wind spear that flew out, and a smile appeared on his face. He moved his hand and grabbed the vast wind spear. Stop! This vast wind spear cannot fall into the hands of that little bastard. Upon seeing this scene, many Lin Mansion disciples on the spectators' stand were extremely excited. The vast wind spear was the Lin Mansion's most prized weapon. If it were to fall into Chu Fengmian's hands, the Lin Mansion would be utterly humiliated. Little bastard! Get lost! A huge figure flew into the life and death ring and arrived in front of Chu Fengmian. He wanted to snatch the vast wind spear before Chu Fengmian. The person who suddenly rushed into the ring was the fourth elder. When he saw Chu Fengmian, he threw a palm at him. Little bastard, get lost! Fourth elder? I haven't dealt with you yet, but you've sent yourself to the life and death ring. Great, it's time to teach you a lesson. Chu Fengmian looked at the fourth elder's attack and his eyes were cold. The fourth elder and the fifth elder had always been against Chu Fengmian. Now that the fourth elder took the initiative to come to the life and death ring, Chu Fengmian wanted to teach him a lesson. Let me get lost. You're the one who should get lost. Just as the fourth elder was about to grab the vast wind spear, his body suddenly stopped as he was grabbed by a huge force. Chu Fengmian grabbed the fourth elder's clothes with one hand and slammed him onto the ground the moment the fourth elder turned around. Boom! The fourth elder's huge body was smashed onto the life and death ring by Chu Fengmian. This smash shattered countless stone tiles on the ground. The fourth elder's strength was actually stronger than the fifth elder. He was at the fifth level of the bone-tempering realm. However, he did not expect Chu Fengmian's strength to be so great. After being smashed onto the ground, he spat out a mouthful of blood. Then, the vast wind spear fell into Chu Fengmian's hands. Since you dare to come to the life and death ring, it means that you've signed the life and death pact. Today, neither of you shall live. Chu Fengmian's eyes were cold. Previously, the fourth elder and the fifth elder wanted to join forces to strip Chu Fengmian of his identity and cultivation. They wanted to make him a slave in the mine. Although they did not succeed, it was Chu Fengmian who initiated the life and death pact. Now that he had the opportunity, Chu Fengmian naturally would not let the two of them go. Chu Fengmian, stop! The enforcement elder hurriedly said from the side. If Chu Fengmian really killed the fourth elder and the fifth elder, the Lin mansion would be in complete chaos. The two of them are your seniors. According to the Lin mansion's rules, offending one's superiors is a capital offense. If you step down today, we will not pursue the responsibility of injuring the two elders. The enforcement elder said coldly. His words were like an order. In his opinion, speaking to Chu Fengmian with his status was a supreme order. Chu Fengmian should obey obediently. However, he seemed to have forgotten something. The current Chu Fengmian was no longer the submissive Chu Fengmian of the past. Rules? Since the two of them dared to come to the life and death ring, they are enemies. Enemies who will not rest until one of them is dead. Are you going to change the rules of the life and death ring? Chu Fengmian glanced at the enforcement elder and said coldly. You are the enforcement elder of the Lin mansion. When the fourth elder interfered in the life and death ring, you did not say anything. Now, you are talking about the rules. If the enforcement elder had stopped the fourth elder, Chu Fengmian might have respected him. However, when the fourth elder interfered, the enforcement elder did not stop him. In fact, he did not even have the slightest intention of stopping him. If he did not follow the rules, how could he let Chu Fengmian follow them? It is not up to a junior like you to judge my actions. The enforcement elder said coldly. Chapter 47. Enforcement elder, aren't you going overboard? The battle between the fifth elder and Chu Fengmian was decided in front of everyone. The third elder couldn't help but say. Moreover, the fourth elder had just interfered in the life and death ring and had already violated the family rules. The enforcement elder is a member of the Lin mansion and should treat everyone equally. Lin Yan, you don't have to say anything about this. The two elders are the foundation of our Lin mansion. We can't let them die in the hands of this kid. The enforcement elder looked at Chu Fengmian coldly and said. Chu Fengmian, this is your last chance. Hand over the great wind spear and step down. You're still the housekeeper of the Lin mansion. Otherwise, I'll clean up the Lin mansion today. Lin Shi, don't you dare. The third elder, Lin Yan, roared. Uncle Lin, you don't have to say anything. Seeing that the third elder was about to say something, Chu Fengmian stopped him calmly. He turned his head and looked at the law enforcement elder with a cold look in his eyes. Lin Shi, aren't the rules just strength? That's right. The enforcement elder replied coldly. The so-called rules were nothing more than an excuse. In fact, he was relying on his strength to suppress Chu Fengmian because he was stronger than Chu Fengmian. Now that he had shed all pretenses, he no longer had any scruples. Chu Fengmian, step down obediently and hand over the great wind spear. Then, you can avoid some physical pain. The enforcement elder said proudly. He had reached body refinement realm level 8 and was one of the top experts in the Lin mansion. He was 7 levels higher than Chu Fengmian. Even if Chu Fengmian could defeat the fourth elder and the fifth elder, he didn't put Chu Fengmian in his eyes. Alright, since we're talking based on strength, then let's use strength to decide. Chu Fengmian's eyes were filled with killing intent as he looked at the enforcement elder and said word by word. Lin Shi, do you dare to come up to the life and death ring? Chu Fengmian stood on the ring and stared at the enforcement elder. Arrogant. Many of the Lin mansion's disciples subconsciously spat out these two words. Arrogant indeed. Who was Lin Shi? He was the law enforcement elder of the Lin clan. Only the top experts in the Lin mansion could take up the position of the law enforcing elder. Among the current elders of the Lin mansion, the law enforcing elder was ranked second, second only to the great elder who had always been in seclusion. A figure at the 8th level of the body refinement stage was sufficient to be called an expert of a generation in the surrounding 13 cities. Now, Chu Fengmian actually challenged Lin Shi. You want to challenge me? Elder of Law Enforcement looked at Chu Fengmian with a cold look in his eyes. He had never thought that a disciple of the Lin Mansion would dare to challenge him. Lin Shi, kill this brat. This brat is arrogant and conceited. If he stays in the Lin Mansion, he will be a scourge. Their family Chu is the scourge of our Lin family. The 4th elder and the 5th elder, who were lying on the ground, spoke furiously. The bones in their bodies had been smashed by Chu Fengmian. Now, they could only lie on the ground, unable to move. They could only use their mouths to talk. The two of you are trash. You can't even take a single blow from me. How dare you speak? Chu Fengmian glanced at the 4th elder, who was lying on the ground, and kicked him. Stop! A figure suddenly stepped on the stage and blocked Chu Fengmian. However, Chu Fengmian's movement technique was faster. In an instant, he bypassed the figure and stepped on the 4th elder's chest. Immediately, blood spurted out from the 4th elder's mouth. This kick had almost caused his internal organs to churn. I will spare your life for now. But remember, a trash like you has no right to speak. Chu Fengmian looked at the 4th elder and said coldly. This could already be considered as a lesson for the 4th elder. If he continued to blabber on, it would be the time of his death. Chu Fengmian, do you really want to be enemies with the Lin Mansion? Looking at Chu Fengmian's actions, the veins on the law enforcement elder's body bulged. Anger. Chu Fengmian actually stepped on the 4th elder in front of him. It seemed that Chu Fengmian didn't even put the law enforcement elder in his eyes. Junior, I will give you half an hour to rest and recover your spiritual energy. This old man disdains to take advantage of you. The law enforcement elder said proudly to Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian had just fought with the 4th elder and the 5th elder. Naturally, he had consumed some of his spiritual energy. Recovering spiritual energy after a battle was only for ordinary warriors. For the current Chu Fengmian, it was nothing. Chu Fengmian had opened up his divine veins and was recovering his spiritual energy almost every moment. The spiritual energy that he had consumed just now had been completely recovered. Now, Chu Fengmian was in his best condition. No need. If you want to fight, come at me. Chu Fengmian glanced at the law enforcement elder and said. You! The law enforcement elder looked at Chu Fengmian with murderous eyes. What an ignorant brat. Do you really think that you are invincible after a few fortuitous encounters? Today, this old man will let you know what it means to be a frog in a well. With your strength, how dare you be so presumptuous in the Lin Mansion? Before the law enforcement elder's voice died away, his body moved. In the blink of an eye, he arrived in front of Chu Fengmian and threw a punch at him. In the exchange just now, the enforcement elder also understood that Chu Fengmian's speed and sudden burst of power were extremely shocking. They even surpassed some martial artists at the 4th or 5th level of the body refinement realm. Therefore, instead of letting Chu Fengmian attack, he would rather take the initiative to suppress Chu Fengmian with his strength. Bam! Bam! Punch after punch, he crazily smashed at Chu Fengmian. The law enforcement elder didn't cultivate weapons. Instead, he cultivated bare-handed punches. His fists were strong enough to shatter steel. He was known as the Iron Fist. The power of his punches forced Chu Fengmian to dodge. He couldn't block them. Ha! Chu Fengmian is too arrogant. A mere 1st level of the body refining realm dares to challenge the law enforcement elder. I'm afraid he doesn't even have the chance to fight back. Lin Yi laughed loudly at the side. Chu Fengmian's amazing performance at the beginning gave him a fright. Now that he saw the law enforcement elder suppressing Chu Fengmian, he was the first to jump out. Young master, it seems like you don't have to make a move. The law enforcement elder will deal with this brat today. That's right. If this brat had bowed his head just now, I wouldn't have been able to do anything to him. At that time, he will definitely be a great threat to me. The young mansion master of the Lin Mansion, Lin Qingyun said with a mocking smile. What a pity. This brat is too arrogant. He offended the law enforcement elder. It seems like today is the day he dies. Chapter 48. What a pity. That old man must have left him this sword art. If I can get it and use it, our Lin Mansion's strength will be greater in the future. Lin Qingyun's eyes were full of greed. This kind of movement technique was something that he had always dreamed of. Young master, don't worry. When this kid is about to be killed by the law enforcement elder, you can ask for it. The law enforcement elder will definitely give you some face. Lin Yi hurriedly flattered him. That's true. Let's see how the law enforcement elder will torture this kid. Lin Qingyun sneered as he watched the battle in the life and death ring. Under the law enforcement elder's strong attacks, Chu Fengmian's figure kept flickering. However, the law enforcement elder was not slow either. Every time Chu Fengmian dodged, the law enforcement elder could catch up with him immediately. It seems that I can't defeat Lin Qingyun with my sword art. Chu Fengmian thought to himself. In that case, let's compete with our strength. Battle Dragon. Chu Fengmian roared in his heart, and the blood in his body began to churn. That drop of golden blood fused into Chu Fengmian's bloodline, and Chu Fengmian's body swelled several times. Fight! With a roar, Chu Fengmian punched the law enforcement elder. This time, the two forces collided head-on. The law enforcement elder's punch met Chu Fengmian's punch and did not gain any advantage. The two forces were on par. What? How is this possible? How could Chu Fengmian's strength suddenly increase so much? Chu Fengmian, who could only dodge the law enforcement elder's punch, was now able to take the law enforcement elder's punch head-on. Linsher, aren't you known as the Iron Fist? Today, I'd like to see whether your fist is harder than mine. Chu Fengmian laughed out loud and punched out again. Junior, how arrogant. At the same time, the law enforcement elder snorted coldly and punched out again. The two were in the center of the life and death ring, punching each other. In this battle, there was no longer any skill involved. It was a battle of strength and spiritual energy. Every punch consumed their respective spiritual energy. It was a competition to see who would run out of stamina. Looks like Linsher has won. The Lin Mansion master softly muttered to himself. In terms of strength, Chu Fengmian was able to fight against Linsher, who was at the 8th level of the body refinement realm, with his cultivation at the 1st level of the body refinement realm. This was already a shocking matter. Just based on this point alone, Chu Fengmian was already the number one in the younger generation of the Lin clan. No one could surpass him. But even if they were evenly matched in terms of strength, the foundation of their spiritual energy was not on the same level. Linsher's spiritual energy at the 8th level of the body refinement realm was countless times stronger than Chu Fengmian's at the 1st level of the body refinement realm. In a contest of spiritual power, Chu Fengmian was bound to lose. Not only the Lin clan lord, the third elder also understood this point. Hesitation could be seen in his eyes, as though he was about to act at any moment. However, the mansion master of the Lin mansion who was beside him had already noticed him. In an instant, the mansion master came to his side, making it impossible for him to make a move. Chu Fengmian is too arrogant. Today, I will teach him a lesson and let him know that the Lin mansion is not a place where he can be arrogant. The mansion master of the Lin mansion said coldly. This brat has too many foundations. It seems that the old man left him many things. If I don't teach him a lesson, I'm afraid that the Lin mansion will not be able to control him in the future. Lin Yan, don't worry. As long as he is willing to hand over those sword skills and pledge his loyalty to the Lin mansion, I will not kill him. The mansion master of the Lin mansion's tone was more like an order than a conversation. Within the Lin mansion, every single word of his was absolute. Within the Lin mansion, every single word of his was absolute. Although the mansion master of the Lin mansion was talking to the third elder, Chu Fengmian still heard his words. Now that Chu Fengmian had opened up his holy meridians, not only did he have boundless spiritual energy, but his 5 senses were also far sharper than ordinary people. Naturally, Chu Fengmian heard every word of the mansion master of the Lin Mansion. Do you all think that Lin sure can defeat me? Then, I will let them see clearly. Chu Fengmian's eyes changed, and the spiritual energy in his body suddenly became stronger. He punched at the enforcement elder again. The power of this punch was much stronger than the previous one. What's wrong with this brat? It has been close to 10 minutes, and my spiritual energy has been depleted by more than half. How can he still have spiritual energy? Seeing that Chu Fengmian's punches were getting stronger and stronger, the enforcement elder's heart was beating like a drum. Logically speaking, with Chu Fengmian's spiritual energy, it should have been depleted by now. Where did he get such strong spiritual energy? He is just a LV1 body refining realm brat. Let's see how much spiritual energy he still has. Elder of Law Enforcement gritted his teeth and unleashed all his spiritual power. Every punch was as powerful as he could muster. He did not believe that Chu Fengmian could hold on for long. As long as he could hold on until Chu Fengmian's spiritual energy was depleted, he would definitely win. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes passed. Another 10 minutes passed. The enforcement elder's spiritual energy was about to be depleted. However, Chu Fengmian, who was opposite him, still looked calm. The power of every punch was even stronger than before. The Battle Dragon technique was a technique created based on the ancient Battle Dragon. The ancient Battle Dragon was a race of warriors. They were born to fight. Now that Chu Fengmian had condensed the Battle Dragon essence blood, his body had the bloodline of the Battle Dragon. His essence was like a humanoid Battle Dragon. The power of every punch was stronger. He was a true fighting genius. Can't hold on any longer? Chu Fengmian laughed at the last moment when he punched. In such a tense battle, ordinary warriors could not even breathe, but Chu Fengmian could still find the strength to laugh. This laugh was incomparably mocking. It was as if he was mocking the enforcement elder for running out of spiritual energy. The LV8 body refining realm is just SOSO. Chu Fengmian said with a calm face, which made the enforcement elder want to spit out a mouthful of blood. He did not hold back at all. He was using all his strength to fight against Chu Fengmian. However, his spiritual energy had been depleted, but Chu Fengmian still looked so relaxed. Is this guy a monster? Yes, he must be a monster, a demon. Otherwise, he would not have such strong power. As soon as this idea appeared in the law enforcement elder's mind, it immediately expanded. Chapter 49. Chu Fengmian, now I know why you've improved so quickly. You've been possessed by a demon. You've disguised yourself well, but unfortunately, you can't escape my eyes. The enforcement elder looked at Chu Fengmian and said angrily. His words caused an uproar on the grandstand. Possessed by a demon. This was a legend from the ancient times. It was said that some martial artists' temperament would change overnight and their strength would increase tremendously. This was because they were possessed by a demon. Now that the enforcement elder said this, countless disciples of the Lin Mansion looked at Chu Fengmian. Indeed, Chu Fengmian's temperament changed drastically overnight and his strength increased tremendously. This was very similar to the rumor of being possessed by a demon. No wonder Chu Fengmian's strength improved so quickly. It turns out that there's a demon in his body. The enforcement elder is wise. Today, this demon's arrogance will come to an end. Many disciples of the Lin Mansion said in unison. Mansion Master, please take action to suppress this demon and get rid of a big problem for the Lin Mansion. If we don't kill this demon today, he'll be a disaster in the future. Almost all of the disciples of the Lin Mansion thought that Chu Fengmian was a demon when they heard the enforcement elder's words. In their hearts, they couldn't believe that Chu Fengmian, who had always been a good-for-nothing, could achieve such an achievement. Now, Elder of Law Enforcement's words were even more in line with their hearts. Indeed, they would rather believe that Chu Fengmian was possessed by a devil, which was why he had such strength. Possessed by a demon? Chu Fengmian looked at the enforcement elder and said with a sarcastic smile. The enforcement elder was really good at finding excuses. What? Chu Fengmian, are you not going to admit it? The enforcement elder looked at Chu Fengmian and said coldly. You killed your fellow disciples and contradicted your elders. Even if you're not possessed by a demon, you're still a great demon. Killing you is a good thing. It's also a good deed for us. The enforcement elder shouted angrily. Is that so? Since the enforcement elder thinks that I'm possessed by a demon, I'll go against my reputation if I don't do something evil. Killing intent surged in Chu Fengmian's eyes. This was the first time Chu Fengmian had such a strong killing intent. This elder of law enforcement had inverted black and white, unable to distinguish right from wrong. First, he had used his strength to suppress others. Now that his strength had failed, he had instead slandered Chu Fengmian. Such a person must not be allowed to live. Kill. The word kill contained boundless killing intent. When the law enforcement elder heard this, he suddenly felt an endless murderous intent fill his mind, causing his mind to turn blank. His face was filled with horror. Now that Chu Fengmian had the bloodline of the primordial war dragon, his killing intent was comparable to the fury of a real primordial war dragon. How could a mere enforcement elder at the 8th level of the body refinement realm withstand it? His face was deathly pale, and he no longer had any spiritual energy left in his body. He could already see his own death. Stop! Suddenly, a wave of spiritual energy bombarded Chu Fengmian. The strength of this spiritual power was much stronger than that of the law enforcement elder. 9th level of the body refinement realm, the number 1 person in the Lin clan on the surface, the Lin clan head, finally made his move. What? Does the manor head also want to save Lin Shi? Unfortunately, even if you make a move, you won't be able to do it. Chu Fengmian shifted his gaze, and similarly, he struck out a palm at the Lin clan head. When the two waves of spiritual energy collided, Chu Fengmian was sent flying. However, Chu Fengmian, who fell, stood up again without any injuries. Is this kid still human? How can his muscles and bones be so tough? When the law enforcement elder saw that Chu Fengmian stood up without any injuries, his face was filled with shock. The Lin clan head did not hold back in the previous palm strike. Under that palm strike, even if he took it head-on, he would be severely injured. Both of his arms might even be broken. However, when he saw Chu Fengmian standing up, it seemed as though he was not injured at all. This kind of body was a little too tough. Chu Fengmian's primordial war dragon bloodline did not only affect Chu Fengmian's strength, but it also made Chu Fengmian's body tougher. The primordial war dragon's body alone was enough to withstand the attack of a heaven-class spiritual weapon. Although Chu Fengmian was far from being able to do so, his body was many times tougher than an ordinary martial artist's. This palm strike only caused Chu Fengmian's body to tremble slightly. However, it did not cause any harm to Chu Fengmian's core. He is indeed possessed by a demon. How can an ordinary martial artist possess such a terrifying body? That's right. Please help us kill this demon and refine his soul. Let this demon never be reincarnated. Many disciples of the Lin clan shouted. The Lin clan head did not care about the words of the disciples of the Lin clan. He only looked at Chu Fengmian quietly and spoke. Chu Fengmian, I'm not an unreasonable person. As long as you tell us about your fortuitous encounter, we can decide whether or not you are possessed by a demon. The Lin clan head looked at Chu Fengmian and spoke calmly. As long as you hand over your fortuitous encounter, hand over your movement skill, swordsmanship, etc., and hand them over to the Lin clan, you can increase the strength of the Lin clan. In this way, you can wash away the fact that you are possessed by a demon. From now on, you will be an elder of the Lin clan. What do you think? Hand over my fortuitous encounter? Chu Fengmian looked at the Lin clan head with a mocking gaze. The Lin clan head merely wanted to obtain Chu Fengmian's fortuitous encounter. How could he make it sound so righteous? The reason why Chu Fengmian was able to contend with the Lin clan was because of his fortuitous encounter. It was enough to make the Lin clan wary. If word of this were to spread, the Lin clan head would be the first to kill Chu Fengmian. Moreover, even if there was a fortuitous encounter, it belonged to Chu Fengmian alone. It had nothing to do with the Lin clan. Dream on. Chu Fengmian spoke coldly. His voice was filled with mockery. Mansion Head, why aren't you killing him? Mansion Head, this lad is definitely a demon. He will only be a scourge in the future if we let him live. Many disciples of the Lin clan shouted with righteous indignation. Fengmian, you should listen to the Mansion Head. The third elder moved and came to the life and death ring. He walked to Chu Fengmian's side and said softly. It's enough. The Mansion Head's strength is far beyond the enforcement elder. With your current talent, you will definitely surpass him in a few years. However, you are not strong enough now. Taking a step back now is the best choice. The third elder hurriedly advised. However, there was no change in Chu Fengmian's expression. Only when he looked at the third elder did he reveal some warmth in his eyes. Lin clan, you don't have to worry about this matter. Chapter 50. Today, he would be the first to die, not to mention Chu Fengmian handing over the fortuitous encounter. Even if the mansion master kept his promise, Chu Fengmian would never hand it over. In his previous life, if Chu Fengmian was willing to hand over the secret of the master of sword Dao, he could still survive from the 7 major sections. However, at that time, Chu Fengmian chose to jump down from the heaven-ceasing peak. Now, if Chu Fengmian was given another chance, he would still make the same choice. Moreover, the person who would die today might not necessarily be Chu Fengmian. If you want my fortuitous encounter, come and get it yourself. Chu Fengmian sneered and rushed towards the law enforcement elder, who was lying on the ground. Now that he had chosen to fall out with the Lin mansion, Chu Fengmian no longer had any scruples. The law enforcement elder was also an expert in the Lin mansion. If he killed him, the mansion master would feel sorry for him for a while. Chu Fengmian, how dare you? Seeing Chu Fengmian's action, the mansion master knew what Chu Fengmian was planning. The law enforcement elder represented the dignity of the Lin mansion. If Chu Fengmian killed the law enforcement elder, the Lin mansion would lose its foothold in martial Linlin City. Why not? Chu Fengmian sneered. He had no scruples in the Lin mansion. Since he had fallen out with the mansion master, Chu Fengmian would not show any mercy to his opponent. Sword. The black azure sword appeared in Chu Fengmian's hand and slashed at the law enforcement elder. Don't even think about it. The mansion master said furiously. He didn't expect that Chu Fengmian wouldn't even listen to him. He thought he could suppress Chu Fengmian, but now he was wrong. Chu Fengmian would not be suppressed by anyone. Even the experts of the 7 major sects could not suppress Chu Fengmian, let alone the mansion master of the Lin mansion. Imperial screen. Suddenly, the mansion master of the Lin mansion attacked. A wave of spiritual energy blasted towards Chu Fengmian and the law enforcement elder. This wave of spiritual energy turned into a wind spirit barrier in front of the two. Wind control technique. This was the foundation of the Lin mansion. Mobilizing the spirits of the 5 elements could only be done by warriors at the Divine Sea realm. However, the Lin mansion master was able to do this with his cultivation base at the 9th level of the body refining realm. It was enough to see how miraculous this wind controlling technique was. It was equivalent to having the strength of a half step into the Divine Sea realm at the 9th level of the body refinement realm. Condense a wind wall? In front of this wind wall cannot withstand a single blow. Chu Fengmian's eyes turned cold, and the sword in his hand moved. This sword seemed to be gently thrust forward, but in reality, it contained an extremely powerful sword essence. The moment it came into contact with the wind wall, the entire wind wall collapsed in an instant. In the face of Chu Fengmian's sword will, the wind wall formed by the estate master of Lin Mansion could not even withstand a single blow. The rest of the sword penetrated the wind wall and pierced the law enforcement elder's body. This sword did not pierce the law enforcement elder's body, but it left a huge scar on his spiritual meridian. It was enough to make him unable to recover for the rest of his life, and he could only be a cripple without any spiritual energy. The high and mighty law enforcement elder of Lin Mansion had now fallen under Chu Fengmian's sword and become a cripple. Little bastard. The estate master of Lin Mansion was furious. Now that Chu Fengmian had destroyed the law enforcement elder's spiritual meridian in front of him, it showed that Chu Fengmian did not take him, the master of a martial arts family, seriously. The estate master of Lin Mansion was enraged, and he slammed his palm towards Chu Fengmian. Sword break! The sword in Chu Fengmian's hand flashed, and he slashed out with his sword. This sword contained 3 layers of sword waves, and it suddenly blocked the palm of the estate master of Lin Mansion. I've said that if I want to kill someone, you can't stop me. Chu Fengmian glanced at the estate master of Lin Mansion and sneered. His sword flashed, and another 2 rays of sword chi shot out. Suddenly, the 4th elder and the 5th elder were pierced by the sword chi, and they no longer had any breath left. Little bastard! Our Lin Mansion will fight you to the death. The estate master of Lin Mansion bellowed. Not only the law enforcement elder, but the 4th elder and the 5th elder were also killed by Chu Fengmian in front of everyone. Chu Fengmian alone had killed more than half of the Lin Mansion's forces, and it could be said that he had chopped off one of the Lin Mansion's arms. This grudge could no longer be resolved. Great Luo Immortal Wind Palm. Endless spiritual energy gathered crazily in the hands of the estate master of Lin Mansion. Suddenly, a huge palm print slammed towards Chu Fengmian. The Great Luo Immortal Wind Palm was the strongest martial technique in Lin Mansion, and it was an upper black class martial technique. Only the estate master of Lin Mansion was able to learn it. Chu Fengmian could feel the immense pressure from the palm. However, as an ancient war dragon, he could only fight and not run. The war dragon bloodline in his body was trembling, as though it was excited to be able to fight with an expert. The more it was a life and death battle, the more it could stimulate the energy in Chu Fengmian's body. The divine veins in his body were replenished by the endless spiritual energy. Dragon fighting in the wild. Chu Fengmian did not run away. Instead, he went up to the attack. On Chu Fengmian's body, his muscles bulged. His entire body seemed to be filled with endless power. He looked like a humanoid war dragon. The immense pressure stimulated the ancient war dragon's fighting spirit in Chu Fengmian's bloodline. He abandoned his sword and clenched his fist, punching out at the estate master of Lin Mansion's Great Luo Immortal Wind Palm. A punch and a palm. 2 extremely powerful forces collided at the same time. Chu Fengmian's figure was forced to retreat several meters away, almost falling off the stage. The estate master of Lin Mansion took a few steps back as well. Although Chu Fengmian appeared to be at a slight disadvantage, it could be said that they were evenly matched. Estate master of Lin Mansion, you do have some strength. I'll come again in a month's time. Chu Fengmian laughed heartily. With a move, he turned into a shadow and walked out of the Lin Mansion. Don't run. Traitor. Stop right there. Countless disciples of Lin Mansion chased after Chu Fengmian. Stop chasing. The estate master of Lin Mansion shouted. However, a few disciples of Lin Mansion had already chased after Chu Fengmian. There must be countless opportunities on this kid to be so powerful. If we kill him, we can get his resources. That's right. If we can kill him, we can become as powerful as him. He used to be a good-for-nothing without a spiritual vein, but he could grow to such a level. Give us those opportunities, and we will be stronger than others. Chapter 51. Those who chased after Chu Fengmian were outstanding disciples of the Lin Mansion. They were all at the first level of the body refining realm. When they saw that Chu Fengmian was trying to escape, they knew that Chu Fengmian must be injured. This was the best opportunity for them. Once they killed Chu Fengmian, they would be able to seize the opportunity on his body. A few pieces of trash dare to chase after me? Chu Fengmian turned around and sneered when he saw the Lin Mansion disciples chasing after him. He stopped in his tracks. Bastard, why aren't you running anymore? Seeing that Chu Fengmian had stopped, the Lin Mansion disciples thought that Chu Fengmian had run out of energy. They looked at Chu Fengmian arrogantly and said coldly, "A piece of trash dares to create havoc in the Lin Mansion. Today is the day you die." Another Lin Mansion disciple laughed loudly. "Kid, be a good boy and hand over your adventure. If you do, I can let you die a quick death. Otherwise, if I bring you back to the Lin Mansion, I will extract your soul and refine it in front of everyone. You're courting death. Chu Fengmian looked at the Lin Mansion disciples and spat out a few words coldly. The black azure sword in his hand flashed. Ah! Screams rang out. A few heads fell to the ground at the same time. With a single slash, the Lin Mansion disciples were all killed by Chu Fengmian. Although these body-refining realm martial artists were at the same level as Chu Fengmian, their strength was not on the same level. Chu Fengmian killed them as easily as stepping on ants. I didn't want to start a massacre, but you're all courting death. Chu Fengmian said coldly. His body moved and disappeared again. He turned into a shadow and left the Lin Mansion in a few steps. Chu Fengmian would never take the initiative to start a massacre. However, when facing those enemies who wanted to kill him, Chu Fengmian wouldn't have any mercy in his heart. The only way to deal with enemies was to kill them. Let's go to the Thousand Weapons Pavilion. Chu Fengmian looked around and ran towards the Thousand Weapons Pavilion in a flash. On the other side, the Lin Mansion was in an uproar. After Chu Fengmian killed the 4th Elder and 5th Elder on the arena of life and death, he even crippled the Enforcement Elder. Half of the Lin Mansion's forces had been destroyed by Chu Fengmian. Father, why didn't you make a move just now and leave that little bastard behind? He has had countless miraculous encounters. If we allow him to continue developing, I'm afraid our Lin Mansion will be destroyed by that little bastard. The young Mansion Master of Lin Mansion, Lin Chengfeng, looked at the Mansion Master and asked in surprise. Earlier, when Chu Fengmian wanted to escape, the Lin Mansion's Mansion Master did not stop him and allowed him to leave. This made him very confused. The Mansion Master of Lin Mansion sighed and said, If Chu Fengmian wants to escape, even I can't stop him. What? This answer stunned Lin Chengfeng. His father, the Mansion Master of the Lin Mansion, was at the 9th level of the body refining realm. He had cultivated the Lin Mansion's unique wind control technique, which was comparable to a half-step to the Divine Sea realm. Such a character actually said that he couldn't keep Chu Fengmian, a brat who had just stepped into the body refining realm. Take a look. The head of the Lin clan tore his robes apart, revealing a clear imprint of a fist on his chest. This punch was left behind by the last punch that had landed on the Lin Mansion Master's chest. This fist print had already hit the Mansion Master of Lin Mansion's spiritual meridians. If the Mansion Master of Lin Mansion forcefully activated his spiritual energy, he might end up destroying his own spiritual meridians. It wasn't that he didn't want to keep Chu Fengmian, but he couldn't do it. Hiss. Lin Chengfeng wasn't stupid. He immediately understood the helplessness of the Mansion Master of Lin Mansion. However, as the number 1 genius in the Lin Mansion, he was now being trampled under Chu Fengmian's feet. How could he bear such resentment? Are you saying that our Lin Mansion can't even deal with such a little bastard? Lin Chengfeng said coldly. His tone was filled with unwillingness. He wanted to obtain the various fortuitous encounters that Chu Fengmian had. He wanted to trample Chu Fengmian under his feet. This was the first time he felt so helpless since he was born. As the young Mansion Master of Lin Mansion, he had always been the number 1 genius and the number 1 among the younger generation in the Lin Mansion. However, Chu Fengmian's appearance had trampled everything he had. Even his father, whom he had always admired, couldn't kill Chu Fengmian. I'm injured, but that brat isn't any better. He took the Great Luo Heavenly Wind Palm. No matter how tough his body is, he won't be able to recover within a month. A brat like him wants to go against our Lin Mansion? He's overestimating himself. Our Lin Mansion has been established for thousands of years. Our foundation isn't something a brat can compare with. The Mansion Master of Lin Mansion said coldly as killing intent flashed across his eyes. I'm going to look for the Great Elder. Only the Great Elder can deal with this brat. He can also capture him and interrogate him about his fortuitous encounters. This brat can achieve so much in just 3 months. It must be his grandfather. That old man has left him countless fortuitous encounters. That old man is one of the top experts in Wuxing country. The things that he left behind are definitely not ordinary. Great Elder. Lin Chengfeng was slightly surprised when he heard the mansion master's words. The Great Elder had always been a legend in the Lin Mansion. None of the disciples of the Lin Mansion had seen the Great Elder in person. Only the mansion master of Lin Mansion and a few elders had seen the Great Elder when they were young. The Great Elder of Lin Mansion is still alive? Lin Chengfeng asked in surprise. There had been many rumors saying that the Great Elder of Lin Mansion had passed away. After all, he hadn't appeared for dozens of years. Of course. The mansion master of Lin Mansion said coldly. Dozens of years ago, the Great Elder of Lin Mansion went to travel with the Great Elder of that time in order to break through to the Divine Sea Realm. According to the news a few days ago, the two of them had successfully broken through. Now, as long as the two of them are back, even if there are 10 Chufengmians, they will be easily suppressed, let alone one. The Divine Sea Realm was a completely different realm from the body refining realm. Once a warrior reached the Spirit Sea Realm, he was no longer an ordinary warrior. He could control the spirits of the 5 elements and manipulate the spiritual qi in heaven and earth. A warrior of the Spirit Sea Realm was much more powerful than 10 warriors at the peak of the body refining realm. Because of this, the mansion master of Lin Mansion was so confident. As long as the 2 elders returned and Chufengmian came again, it would be the end of Chufengmian. For the next few days, don't provoke Chufengmian. When the 2 elders return, we will capture that brat. The mansion master of Lin Mansion instructed. Yes. The disciples of Lin Mansion at the scene shouted in unison. They were all scared out of their wits by Chufengmian. How would they dare to find trouble with Chufengmian? Lin Chengfeng's heart was filled with joy. Chapter 52. The 10,000 Tools Pavilion was also bustling with activity today, filled with martial artists. Chufengmian walked in and spoke to a servant at the entrance. Call your manager over. I have something to talk to him about. Who are you? Why are you looking for our manager? Our manager is busy every day and doesn't have time to meet a small fry like you. Leave. The servant looked at Chufengmian's cultivation and spoke with disdain. Although the first level of the body refinement stage was considered an expert in martial Linlin City, what kind of status did the 1,000-weapon pavilion have? It was beyond martial Linlin City. Even the Lin Mansion master would have to book a date in advance if he wanted to meet the manager of the 1,000-weapon pavilion. Chufengmian wanted to meet the manager of the 1,000-weapon pavilion, so the servant was naturally disdainful. Is that so? I didn't expect that not only the Lin Mansion but also the 1,000-weapon pavilion. Chufengmian glanced at the servant and sneered. Brat, you dare to cause trouble in the 1,000-weapon pavilion? Man! The servant mocked when he heard Chufengmian's words. Even the Lin Mansion master didn't have the guts to make a move in the 1,000-weapon pavilion, so what was he afraid of? The quarrel between the two had attracted the attention of many cultivators. Look at that person. Isn't that Butler Chu? I heard that he has already formed his spiritual pulse. I haven't seen him for 3 months and he has already stepped into the body refinement realm. Some cultivators had already recognized Chufengmian. They didn't recognize Chufengmian at first, but now that they took a closer look, they finally recognized him. Chufengmian's current temperament was completely different from his previous temperament. It was hard for ordinary cultivators to imagine that the two completely different impressions were actually the same person. He's going to fight with the servant of the 1,000-weapon pavilion? The servants of the 1,000-weapon pavilion are all arrogant and never put us in their eyes. It seems that they have angered Butler Chu. So what if he's angered? The 1,000-weapon pavilion isn't afraid of the Lin Mansion. If they fight today, he will be the one to suffer. Some cultivators were discussing, but their voices suddenly stopped. 2 venerables had already walked out of the 1,000-weapons pavilion. Both of them were at the first level of the body refining realm. In the Lin Mansion, they were already considered elites among the inner court disciples. However, in the 1,000-weapons pavilion, they were merely 2 guards. Steward Chu, aren't you very arrogant? Why aren't you talking now? Seeing the two warriors walking over, the manservant's heart was filled with confidence as he spoke coldly. "Break his legs and throw him out." "Yes." The two cultivators responded at the same time. As guards of the 10,000 tool pavilion, they naturally didn't care about each other's identities. "Excuse me." The two of them shouted at the same time. Each of them grabbed Chu Fengmian's arms with one hand each, intending to throw Chu Fengmian away. "Humph." Chu Fengmian glanced at the two of them. Exerting strength in his arms, he lifted them up and threw them to the ground. Bang! A loud sound was heard. Everyone looked over and saw that Chu Fengmian's figure was still standing in the same place, completely motionless. At Chu Fengmian's feet, the two guards who had just made a move were lying on the ground. Although Chu Fengmian was currently injured, it was still easy for him to deal with two warriors at the first level of the body refining realm. "I'll give you one last chance. Call your manager out." Chu Fengmian glanced at the manservant and spoke coldly. "This is your last chance." "What chance?" "Brat, you actually dare to cause trouble in the 1,000-weapon pavilion. Looks like you're really tired of waiting. Men, come quickly. Someone is here to cause trouble." "Who dares to cause trouble in the 1,000-weapon pavilion?" A deep voice was heard all of a sudden. An old man slowly walked down the stairs. His voice was filled with endless majesty. It was the manager of the 1,000-weapon pavilion, Xian Jingtai. "The manager of the 1,000-weapon pavilion is here. Steward Chu is in trouble now." Many of the cultivators secretly thought in their hearts. "Manager, he's the one who came to cause trouble in the 1,000-weapon pavilion." Seeing Xian Jingtai's arrival, the manservant hurriedly spoke. He looked at Chu Fengmian as if he wanted to see how Chu Fengmian would be thrown out. However, what happened next made his eyes pop out of their sockets. Xian Jingtai, who was originally furious, immediately calmed down when he saw that the person who came was Chu Fengmian. There was even a hint of a smile on his face. "So it's Steward Chu." Xian Jingtai looked at Chu Fengmian and smiled. There was a hint of respect in his tone. That's right, it was respect. Even when facing the Lin Mansion master, Xian Jingtai was extremely calm. He was neither servile nor overbearing. When had he ever taken the initiative to curry favor with such a junior? The crowd couldn't help but rub their eyes as if they couldn't believe everything that was happening in front of them. It was the same for the manservant. He originally thought that Xian Jingtai would throw Chu Fengmian out without any explanation. However, it was the complete opposite as he welcomed Chu Fengmian with a smile. "Manager, this brat just beat up the guards of our 1,000-weapon pavilion." The manservant hurriedly spoke. Xian Jingtai looked at Chu Fengmian and then looked at the manservant. Suddenly, his expression changed as he said coldly. "You are the one who offended the esteemed guest of our 1,000-weapon pavilion?" "Esteemed guest?" Before the manservant could react, Xian Jingtai had already looked at Chu Fengmian and spoke. "This brat is insensible and has offended Steward Chu. As for how he will be punished, Steward Chu will decide." "All right." Chu Fengmian nodded his head and didn't decline. He walked to the manservant's side, grabbed the manservant's clothes, and lifted him up. "Were you trying to throw me out just now?" Chu Fengmian said calmly. He exerted force in his hand and threw the manservant out of the 1,000-weapon pavilion onto the streets. Chu Fengmian didn't use much force in this throw. He only wanted to teach the manservant a lesson. He didn't want to hurt him badly. Chu Fengmian wasn't a bloodthirsty person. Although the manservant had offended him, it was enough to teach him a lesson. Xian Jingtai's expression didn't change as he watched Chu Fengmian throw the manservant out. "Steward Chu, let's go upstairs." "All right." Chu Fengmian moved his feet and walked up to the second floor. It wasn't until a long time after Chu Fengmian and Xian Jingtai left that the cultivators regained their senses. Since when did someone throw the manservant of the 1,000-weapon pavilion out? Especially Xian Jingtai's attitude towards Chu Fengmian. Even the city lord of Martial Forest City wasn't so polite. Chapter 53. Chu Fengmian and Xian Jingtai went up to the second floor and sat down in the quietest room in the building. "Butler Chu, why have you come to the Thousand-Weapon Pavilion to look for me?" Xian Jingtai asked with a smile. Ever since Chu Fengmian helped him resolve the backlash from Xian Jingtai's sword essence, Xian Jingtai had the intention to rope Chu Fengmian in. That was why he was so polite to Chu Fengmian. Now that Chu Fengmian came to look for him, he took the initiative to come. Xian Jingtai said as he sized Chu Fengmian up. When he saw that Chu Fengmian was in the first level of the body refinement realm, his eyes were filled with shock. 3 months. In just 3 months, Chu Fengmian went from the 5th level of the bone tempering realm to the body refinement realm. This kind of speed was indeed a little fast to the point of being shocking. Although this speed was not impossible for the disciples of the major sects, Chu Fengmian came from a remote place. Chu Fengmian's resources could not be compared to the disciples of the major sections. To be able to enter the body refinement realm at such a young age, he was already considered a genius in Martial Forest City. However, Chu Fengmian went from a trash without a spiritual pulse to the body refinement realm in just 3 months. Before that, Chu Fengmian did not have a spiritual pulse. For such a drastic change to occur within 3 months, there must be an almighty existence behind all of this. This made Xian Jingtai believe that there was an almighty existence behind Chu Fengmian. Xian Jingtai's thoughts could not be hidden from Chu Fengmian's eyes. With Xian Jingtai's status, even the Lin Mansion Master would not be so polite to him. Chu Fengmian also knew what Xian Jingtai was planning. However, this was within Chu Fengmian's calculations. Chu Fengmian pretended that he did not notice Xian Jingtai's thoughts and said calmly, "I'm no longer the butler of the Lin Mansion. Shopkeeper Xian, please change the way you address me." Chu Fengmian said calmly. "Oh? Then I'll be presumptuous. In that case, I'll call you young Master Chu." Xian Jingtai said. "May I know why young Master Chu has come to my Thousand Weapons Pavilion?" "It's not a big deal. It's just that I recently went to the Desolate Mountains and obtained a batch of Yao cores. I wonder if shopkeeper Xian needs them." "Oh?" Xian Jingtai was slightly surprised. Chu Fengmian had indeed not appeared in Martial Forest City for 3 months. Who would have thought that Chu Fengmian had gone to the Savage Mountain Range? The Savage Mountain Range was indeed a place where countless martial artists liked to train. Here, they could experience true life and death battles to temper themselves and make breakthroughs. They could also obtain pills to exchange for money. Although our Myriad Weapon Pavilion mainly deals in spiritual weapons, we do accept beast cores," Xian Jingtai said without hesitation. Not to mention that the Myriad Tools Pavilion still accepted Yao cores. Even if they didn't, Xian Jingtai would definitely accept Chu Fengmian's current status. After all, with this friendship, it would be much easier to win over Chu Feng in the future. Xian Jingtai had already determined that there was an almighty swordsman behind Chu Fengmian. If he could get some pointers, Xian Jingtai's future achievements would be much higher. "May I know what kind of beast cores young Master Chu wants to sell?" "I, Xian, can give you the price right now," Xian Jingtai said with a smile. A few beast cores was just a drop in the ocean for the Myriad Tools Pavilion. He didn't need to pay much attention to it. What he cared about was to win over Chu Fengmian and make him have a good impression of him. There are quite a lot of beast cores. "Shopkeeper Xian, please take a look." Chu Fengmian thought for a moment, then took out a storage pouch and handed it to Xian Jingtai. He had obtained quite a lot of beast cores in the Savage Mountain Range. To be specific, there were more than 100 of them. It was too troublesome to take them out one by one, so it was better to sell them all together. Xian Jingtai took the storage pouch and opened it. He was slightly surprised to see the various beast cores inside. There were more than 100 beast cores. 3 months was enough for him to hunt so many beasts in the Savage Mountain Range. The number was extremely shocking. However, this was only the beast cores that Chu Fengmian had hunted for more than 10 days. He spent the rest of his time in the cave, cultivating the battle dragon art and condensing his divine veins. However, these 100 or so Yao cores could be considered a considerable amount of wealth. green-skinned bull, green-horned goat, double-horned rhinoceros. Xian Jingtai took out the beast cores one by one and counted them. These beast cores were quite common. Their prices weren't high, so it was easy to calculate. Beast cores below the peak of the bone-tempering realm won't be too expensive. One beast core can be exchanged for 10 bone-tempering pills at most. Is young Master Chu satisfied? Xian Jingtai looked at Chu Fengmian and said. 10 bone-tempering pills. This price was extremely high. Normally, these ordinary beast cores could be sold for 7 or 8 bone-tempering pills. The price of 10 bone-tempering pills could be said to be Xian Jingtai's purposely high price to win over Chu Fengmian. However, Chu Fengmian had no reason not to take advantage of it. All right. Chu Fengmian nodded, then let Xian Jingtai continue counting. These are? After taking out the ordinary beast cores, Xian Jingtai took out a batch of green beast cores. There were more than a dozen of them. Beast cores of bloodthirsty fiend wolves. These are rare items. Xian Jingtai looked at the bloodthirsty fiend wolves beast cores and said with a smile. These bloodthirsty fiend wolves beast cores are worth a total of 1,000 bone-tempering pills. How about that? Although bloodthirsty fiend wolves were also bone-tempering realm beasts, they were extremely ferocious, especially when they traveled in groups. Ordinary bone-tempering realm martial artists naturally wouldn't dare to provoke them. Even body-tempering realm martial artists at the first or second level might not be able to deal with a pack of wolves. As for the true experts, they wouldn't bother to hunt bloodthirsty fiend wolves. This led to the bloodthirsty fiend wolves beast cores being extremely valuable. Next, some beast cores were taken out. They weren't ordinary bone-tempering realm beast cores. Xian Jingtai also took out the hunter spider and mountain barbarian bear beast cores. These 2 beast cores are worth a total of 1,500 bone-tempering pills. Xian Jingtai continued to calculate. There was only 1 beast core left in the storage bag. When Xian Jingtai reached his hand in to grab it, he was also shocked by an extremely cold qi. This is the Dark Water Cold Snake's beast core? Chapter 54. The ghastly water snake was a demonic beast with the bloodline of the true dragon. It was extremely powerful and difficult to kill. Especially since the ghastly water snake lived at the bottom of a deep pool. It was extremely difficult for powerful martial artists to kill it. The demonic core of a ghastly water snake at the 3rd level of the body-tempering realm looks like it hasn't matured yet. However, there is a faint trace of dragon power in the demonic core. It looks like a pure-blooded ghastly water snake. Xian Jingtai said word by word. With his experience, he could tell what was going on with the demonic core at a glance. This ghastly water snake's demonic core is worth 50,000 bone-tempering pills. Xian Jingtai finally said. A total of 143 pills. That's a total of 53,700 bone-tempering pills. How about 54,000 bone-tempering pills? 54,000 bone-tempering pills. This price was much higher than what Chu Fengmian had calculated. It seemed like Xian Jingtai was also buying at the highest price. Alright, 54,000 it is. Chu Fengmian agreed without hesitation. Chu Fengmian had no use for these demonic cores. He might as well exchange them for pills. Would young Master Chu like to exchange them for body-tempering pills or pill coupons? Xian Jingtai asked. 54,000 bone-tempering pills could not be carried around at all times. This method of exchange was naturally to exchange for pills with higher prices or pill coupons. Pill coupons were jointly issued by the 5 great firms. They could be exchanged for pills at the various trading houses. It was very convenient. Hence, many merchants used pill coupons to trade. Chu Fengmian hesitated for a moment before asking. Shopkeeper Xian, do you have qi-gathering pills refined by the Martial Prosperity Academy in the Thousand Weapons Pavilion? Qi-gathering pills? Xian Jingtai thought for a moment and said with a smile. Of course. Would young Master Chu like to exchange these bone-tempering pills for qi-gathering pills? That's fine. How about we exchange them for qi-gathering pills at a price of 1,000 to 1? 1,000 bone-tempering pills for 1 qi-gathering pill. This price was definitely extremely cheap. A single energy-gathering pill could be exchanged for at least 3,000 to 4,000 energy-gathering pills in the black market. All right. Chu Fengmian agreed immediately. Since Xian Jingtai was offering him a bargain, Chu Fengmian pill, of course, Chu Fengmian. He was lacking in elixirs and needed to replenish his supply. Not long after, the young lady called Mo walked in with a few jade bottles. Uncle Xian, she said. Mo walked in and opened her mouth to speak. Her voice was extremely clear and pleasant to the ear. Her every action contained a gentle and noble aura. It was likely that this Mo was not a servant of the 10,000 weapon pavilion. It seems that Xian Jingtai and Mo have some history. Xian Jingtai's strength was extremely terrifying. Last time, when Chu Fengmian helped him dissolve the sword intent, he discovered that Xian Jingtai's strength had surpassed the Divine Sea realm and had reached the wind-controlling realm. Compared to the Supreme Elder of the Lin Mansion, he was countless times more terrifying to be. The last time Chu Fengmian appeared, he helped Xian Jingtai resolve the sword intent and took away the treasure of the 1,000-weapon pavilion, the Dark Azure Sword. Xian Jingtai did not expect Chu Fengmian to come again in exchange for elixirs. Xian Jingtai placed the jade bottles in front of Chu Fengmian and said, "Is there anything else young Master Chu needs?" Chu Fengmian thought for a while and said, "I need a quiet room for seclusion. I'm not sure if the 1,000-weapon pavilion has one." After the battle in the Lin Mansion, Chu Fengmian also suffered some injuries and needed to recover. Now that he couldn't return to the Lin Mansion, Chu Fengmian needed to find a safe place. The 1,000-weapon pavilion was the safest place. Even if the experts in the Lin Mansion wanted to kill Chu Fengmian, they would not dare to come here. What place could be safer than the 1,000-weapon pavilion, which was guarded by a Wind Realm expert? Of course there is a secret room. I usually cultivate in the 1,000-weapon pavilion and have a secret room. If young Master Chu does not mind, you can move to the 3rd floor. Xian Jingtai said with a smile. All right. Chu Fengmian did not refuse and strode up to the 3rd floor. The 3rd floor of the 1,000-weapon pavilion was an independent space. There was a huge bronze door on the top of the bronze door. There were arrays engraved on the bronze door and they were still in operation. I prepared this secret room for myself. I am afraid of being disturbed. Young Master Chu, you don't have to worry. I can guarantee that no one will disturb young Master Chu. Xian Jingtai said with a smile. As a wind-resisting realm martial artist, his words were convincing. After all, even if there were countless experts in the surrounding 13 cities, there would not be a single Wind Realm expert. Xian Jingtai was already an invincible figure in the 13 cities. Thank you, shopkeeper Xian. Chu Fengmian replied with a smile. He pushed open the bronze door and entered. The secret room was built with great care. The surrounding walls were all made with a precious material, pure gold copper essence. It was strong enough to block out spiritual consciousness. Even if one practiced sword skills in the secret room, there was no need to worry about the outside world. What a great place! Chu Fengmian praised. He sat down and tore open the clothes on his chest. A huge palm print could be seen clearly on his chest. This was the result of the Lin Mansion Master's all-out attack. A martial artist at the 9th level of the body refinement stage is indeed much stronger than me. If it wasn't for the fact that I've cultivated the dragon-slaying art and my body is already incomparable to an ordinary martial artist's, this palm strike would have been enough to turn me into a pile of meat paste. Chu Fengmian thought to himself. It was indeed risky for him to attack the Lin Mansion Master. However, with Chu Fengmian's current strength, the Lin Mansion Master would not be able to stop him. The Lin Mansion Master would not be in a good state after that punch. Chu Fengmian sat cross-legged with his eyes closed. He took out the jade bottles and placed them in front of him. These jade bottles were filled with energy-gathering pills. Excluding the ones that Chu Fengmian consumed in the barbaric mountain range, there were still 400 pills left. After consuming all 400 energy-gathering pills, Chu Fengmian could attempt to break through to the second drop of dragon blood. Since I am injured, I can use this opportunity to continue cultivating the dragon battle skill. Although Chu Fengmian was severely injured, he felt that his strength did not weaken much. Chapter 55. The ancient war dragon was born to battle. They were born to battle and to improve their strength through battle. The injuries that Chu Fengmian had received from the battle of life and death had not only not affected his strength, but had instead allowed his strength to advance further. Chu Fengmian could vaguely feel that he had finally stimulated the power of the first drop of ancient war dragon blood essence. Only through battle could the most terrifying power of the war dragon skill be stimulated. The most powerful thing about the war dragon skill is that it is like the ancient war dragon. The more you fight, the stronger you become. Otherwise, why do you think the war dragon skill is called the strongest skill? Xing Xian's voice rang in his mind. Xing Xian usually did not speak. He would only come out when Chu Fengmian was cultivating. Now that you have gone through a tough battle, you have stimulated all the power in the ancient war dragon blood essence. Now, you can try to condense the second drop of ancient war dragon blood essence. Xing Xian said as he looked at the energy-gathering pills in front of Chu Fengmian with disdain. The grade of these pills is too low. Even if you refine all of them, I'm afraid you can barely condense the second drop of ancient war dragon blood essence. If you want to cultivate the war dragon skill to the great success stage, you will need more pills. I know. Chu Fengmian said. He had already noticed it when he condensed the first drop of ancient war dragon blood essence. The war dragon skill required a huge appetite. Unlike ordinary skills, the amount of pills required to cultivate the war dragon skill was 10 times or even 100 times more than ordinary skills. 400 energy-gathering pills was equivalent to 400,000 bone-tempering pills. This price was equivalent to several years of the Lin Mansion's income, and it was only enough to condense the second drop of ancient war dragon blood essence. There's no other way. I can only accumulate them bit by bit. Chu Fengmian knew it clearly. It was absolutely impossible to gather so many elixirs in this remote Lingwu city. Only by leaving Lingwu City in the future and heading to a more prosperous place would he have a chance to obtain more elixirs. Chu Fengmian already had a plan in his mind. However, he had to wait until he was done with the Lin Mansion. Let's cultivate first. Strength is the foundation of stability. Without strength, everything is meaningless. Chu Fengmian thought to himself as he calmed down. He picked up the energy-gathering pills one by one and swallowed them. One energy convergence pill after another was consumed by Chu Fengmian. These spiritual energies were all stored in the illusory figure of the primordial battle dragon in his body. As the 400 qi accumulating pills were consumed, Chu Fengmian finally sensed the illusionary figure of the ancient battle dragon vibrating slightly. Chu Fengmian knew that this was the moment when one's spiritual power had reached its limit and could condense essence blood. Condense. Chu Fengmian's brows were tightly knitted. He circulated all the spiritual energy in his body and suddenly attacked, condensing it. On the illusory figure of the ancient war dragon, the second drop of golden essence blood was slowly formed. Who? Chu Fengmian only heaved a sigh of relief when the second drop of ancient battle dragon's blood essence was completely condensed. This condensation was extremely forceful. Just a bit more and there wouldn't be enough spiritual energy. My cultivation level seems to have stepped into the third level of the body refinement realm. He stood up and stretched his body. He felt that his strength had increased by quite a bit. The palm print that was originally on Chu Fengmian's chest had also completely disappeared. Since Chu Fengmian had inherited the bloodline of the ancient battle dragon, he naturally had the terrifying recovery ability of the ancient battle dragon. If it were an ordinary martial artist, it would take at least a month to recover from such an injury even if he consumed elixir pills. However, for Chu Fengmian, 1 day was sufficient. This was the terrifying part of the bloodline of the ancient battle dragon. With my cultivation level at the first level of the body refinement realm, I am already able to contend with the mansion master of the Lin Mansion who is at the 9th level of the body refinement realm. I wonder how much more my strength will increase with this breakthrough. Chu Fengmian thought to himself as he suddenly threw a punch across the air. Bang! A series of sounds rang out. There was a loud explosion in the air in front of Chu Fengmian. Qi condensation explosion. This was something that only a martial artist at the peak of the body refinement realm could do. Chu Fengmian's current strength had most likely reached the level of a martial artist at the peak of the body refinement realm or even stronger. This time, if Chu Fengmian were to meet the mansion master of the Lin Mansion, he was confident that he could defeat him in 3 moves. Condensing 2 drops of ancient battle dragon blood essence was already considered the peak in Martial Forest City. If he could condense more ancient battle dragon blood essence, he would be able to trample Martial Victory Country under his feet. Chu Fengmian thought to himself. However, if he wanted to condense the ancient battle dragon blood essence, he would need an astronomical amount of resources. This time, other than the 54 Qi amassing pills that he bought from the 1,000 Weapons Pavilion, the rest of the Qi amassing pills that Chu Fengmian obtained from the Martial Flame Hall in the Barbaric Mountain Range. It was considered a windfall. Otherwise, it would take Chu Fengmian a long time to accumulate such wealth. Speaking of which, it seems like there is still a windfall that I have yet to collect. Another day has passed, it seems like it's about time. Chu Fengmian muttered to himself. He stood up, opened the bronze door of the secret chamber, and walked out. Walking out of the bronze door, Chu Fengmian saw Xian Jingtai outside. When Xian Jingtai saw Chu Fengmian coming out of the bronze door and felt the change in Chu Fengmian's cultivation, his eyes were filled with shock. In just a day, not only did Chu Fengmian recover from his injuries, his strength also had a great breakthrough. He broke through 2 levels in one go, reaching the 3rd level of the body refinement realm. This speed was truly shocking. Even the geniuses in Martial Victory Country would not be able to compare with Chu Fengmian. Although he was shocked, his expression was still calm. He walked up with a slight smile on his face. Congratulations, young Master Chu. Your strength has improved. It's all thanks to the 1,000 Weapons Pavilion's elixirs. Otherwise, my progress would not be so smooth. Chu Fengmian replied with a smile. Then, Chu Fengmian's expression became calm as he spoke. I wonder if shopkeeper Xian's promise to help me with 3 things is true. Of course. Xian Jingtai said resolutely. I have never regretted my words. Why, does young Master Chu need my help? That's right. Chu Fengmian nodded. I need shopkeeper Xian's help to kill someone. Kill someone? Hearing this, Xian Jingtai looked at Chu Fengmian with some surprise. There was a super expert behind Chu Fengmian. If Chu Fengmian wanted to kill someone, he should not be needed. However, Xian Jingtai quickly understood. Since the expert behind Chu Fengmian was unwilling to show himself, he naturally did not want to be exposed. Chapter 56. There were some hidden experts on the mainland who were unwilling to make a move. After all, once they did, the repercussions would be too great. In Xian Jingtai's opinion, the expert behind Chu Fengmian was also a hidden expert who was unwilling to make a move and reveal his identity. That was why Chu Fengmian came to him for help. Who is it? Is it someone from the Lin Mansion? Xian Jingtai asked. He knew about the feud between Chu Fengmian and the Lin Mansion, including the fact that Chu Fengmian killed the 4th and 5th elders. He knew about how Chu Fengmian destroyed the law enforcement elder's cultivation and fought with the estate master of the Lin Mansion. When he heard that Chu Fengmian and the estate master of the Lin Mansion were evenly matched, Xian Jingtai was shocked. The estate master of the Lin Mansion was at the 9th level of the body refinement realm, while Chu Fengmian was only at the 1st level. Chu Fengmian was 8 levels above him and he was not at a disadvantage. Xian Jingtai had never seen or heard of such a thing before. No, it's someone from the Wusheng Academy. Chu Fengmian shook his head. It's a hall master from the Wusheng Academy. A hall master from the Wusheng Academy? Xian Jingtai did not expect Chu Fengmian to have such a feud with the Wusheng Academy. However, with his status, there was no need for him to fear the Martial Victory Academy. At best, the Martial Victory Academy was only a major force in the Martial Victory country. However, compared to the Sky Sword sect behind him, the difference was like heaven and earth. Even if he killed the Hall Master of the Wusheng Academy, the Wusheng Academy would not dare to deal with him. After all, Xian Jingtai represented the Tianjian sect, a truly powerful force. To be safe, Xian Jingtai asked again. Which Hall Master is it? Some of the Hall Masters in the Wusheng Academy were not weaker than him. Some were even stronger than Xian Jingtai. Xian Jingtai might not even be able to kill them. The Hall Master of the Wuyan Hall. Chu Fengmian replied. Wuyan Hall is just a lower middle-class hall. A Divine Sea Realm brat should be no problem. After recalling who the Hall Master of the Martial Flame Hall was, Xian Jingtai said with a smile. A warrior in the Divine Sea Realm was no more powerful than an ant in front of him. Naturally, it would be easy for him to kill them. When do you need to make a move? I can't do anything in the Martial Victory Institute, but if he leaves the Martial Victory Institute, he'll definitely die. Xian Jingtai said confidently. With his strength, it was easy for him to deal with a warrior of the Spirit Sea Realm. It was not a difficult task, apart from the fact that it would be a little tricky in the Martial Victory Institute. After all, it was impossible for Xian Jingtai to swagger into Wusheng Academy and kill the Martial Flame Hall's Hall Master. Right now, the Martial Flame Hall's Hall Master is outside the academy. Chu Fengmian said with a smile. Shopkeeper Xian, why don't you come with me? All right. Xian Jingtai glanced at Chu Fengmian and nodded. The two figures quickly left the Thousand-Weapon Pavilion and ran towards the west of Martial Linlan City. When a warrior reached the body refining realm, his speed was much faster than that of a horse. Therefore, instead of riding a horse, he might as well use his feet to move faster. In particular, although Chu Fengmian's realm was not high, his spiritual energy was almost endless. He could run at his fastest speed at any time. Along the way, Xian Jingtai kept observing Chu Fengmian. He originally thought that Chu Fengmian would need to rest for a while with such a fast speed. However, Chu Fengmian's spiritual energy seemed to have reached an inexhaustible level. No matter how much it was consumed, there was no loss at all. This made Xian Jingtai feel surprised. We're here. After 2 hours, the two of them had run for several hundred miles. They only stopped when they arrived at a canyon. This canyon was the only way to enter and exit the 13 cities around Martial Linlan City. Martial Linlan City was actually located in a mountain. If one wanted to leave, they could only pass through this canyon. At the same time, if outsiders wanted to enter, they could only pass through this canyon. It was the only way to enter and exit the 13 cities in the southwest. Looking at the time, it's about time. Chu Fengmian looked at the crowd below and thought to himself. In the barbaric mountain range, Chu Fengmian had a conflict with the Martial Flame Hall's young hall master, Ding Hao. He had even killed all of Ding Hao's servants. Chu Fengmian originally wanted to cut the weeds and eliminate the roots. However, Ding Hao had a protective jade talisman on him, so Chu Fengmian had no choice but to let Ding Hao go this time. Ding Hao was now Chu Fengmian's mortal enemy. Now, he even knew about Chu Fengmian's swordsmanship and movement technique. With Ding Hao's vengeful character, he would definitely come back to seek revenge on Chu Fengmian. He would even bring people to snatch Chu Fengmian's swordsmanship and movement technique. Calculating the time, it should not be difficult for the Martial Flame Hall to find out Chu Fengmian's identity. After all, Chu Fengmian did not disguise himself. In addition, Chu Fengmian's sudden rise had made him famous in the 13 southwestern cities. It would not be difficult to find Chu Fengmian. While Chu Fengmian was thinking, the sound of hooves could be heard. From afar, there were more than 10 black horses galloping towards them. These black horses were not ordinary horses. Their bodies were not covered with hair, but with scales. Black scale horses. It was said that these black scale horses had the bloodline of the ancient golden scale beast, which was why they were covered in scales and had amazing endurance. The speed of a black scale horse was comparable to a divine sea realm warrior. Therefore, some major forces would choose to rear this kind of black scale horse. A black scale horse was worth at least 100,000 bone-tempering pills. Only some major forces could afford to rear it. In the Lin Mansion, only the mansion master of the Lin Mansion had a black scale horse as a mount. This group of people were all riding black scale horses. The black scale horse that the leader was riding was twice the size of an ordinary black scale horse. It was a horse king. A black scale horse king was worth millions of bone-tempering pills. Only the hall master of the martial flame hall could have such wealth. They are here. Chu Fengmian sneered in his heart. Father, that kid's swordsmanship and movement technique are all of high grade. I'm afraid that they are much more exquisite than those in the library. Chu Fengmian heard the young hall master of the martial flame hall talking to a middle-aged man beside him. The middle-aged man was dressed in formal clothes. He had an imposing appearance and an indifferent expression. At first glance, one could tell that he was someone who had been in a high position for a long time. However, your training trip to the barbaric mountain range this time was quite a fortuitous encounter. Such a terrifying young man, I'm afraid that his sword skills and agility must have been quite fortuitous as well. If we can kill him and get his swordsmanship and movement technique, the power of the martial flame hall will be strengthened in the Wusheng Academy. Chapter 57. That brat dared to kill my servant. This time, when I catch him, I will cripple his cultivation and demote him to a lowly slave. Ding Hao said viciously. He had almost died at Chu Fengmian's hands in the barbaric mountain range. As the young hall master of the martial flame hall, he had never encountered such danger. His hatred for Chu Fengmian was unforgettable. Catch that brat. When he hands over his fortuitous encounter, you can do whatever you want with him. The hall master of the martial flame hall said coldly. Suddenly, his expression changed and he hurriedly pulled on the reins. Stop! Following the martial flame hall master's command, the martial flame hall disciples following behind him all stopped at once. Father, what's wrong? Ding Hao didn't understand the situation and asked. He looked at the hall master of the martial flame hall and found that the hall master had already raised his head. He stared at the two figures above the canyon. When one reached the divine sea realm, one could sense danger and sense people spying on them. Chu Fengmian and Xian Jingtai's undisguised killing intent was naturally seen through by him. Who are you? I am the hall master of the martial flame hall of the Martial Victory Academy. How dare you stop me? The hall master of the martial flame hall said angrily. His tone was extremely arrogant. He was one of the hall masters of the Martial Victory Institute. Even in the entire Martial Victory Nation, he was one of the most respected people there. Now that he was in the remote 13 southwestern cities, he naturally didn't take these people seriously. Hallmaster Ding, didn't you want to find me? Now, I am right in front of you. Two figures suddenly jumped down from the top of the canyon. This canyon was at least 100 meters high, but the two people who jumped down landed easily. To be able to do this, their strength had to have reached the peak of the body refining realm. Hearing Chu Fengmian's words, the hall master of the martial flame hall didn't immediately understand. Ding Hao, who was beside him, immediately recognized Chu Fengmian. Father, this is the brat I met in the barbaric mountain range. Oh? You are Chu Fengmian? The martial flame hall master looked at Chu Fengmian with a sharp gaze. He was also sizing up Chu Fengmian's strength. To be able to reach such a stage, Chu Fengmian's strength was at least at the peak of the body refinement realm. To be able to reach the peak of the body refinement stage at such a young age, Chu Fengmian must have obtained many opportunities and encounters. That's right. This Chu knows that all of you are here to deal with this Chu. Rather than wasting your time, why don't this Chu settle this grudge right here and now? Chu Fengmian looked at everyone with a smile in his eyes. The scenery here is not bad. Let's use it as your burial ground. Hearing Chu Fengmian's words, the group of people all became furious. They were all disciples of the Martial Victory Academy. Although they were only outer sect disciples, in places like the 13 southwestern cities, even the city lords had to treat them with respect. Chu Fengmian, who had suddenly appeared, actually wanted to kill them here. Arrogant brat. A kid from a remote place, it seems like he's really tired of living. A man at the peak of the body refinement stage looked at Chu Fengmian with ridicule in his eyes. Looks like I have to teach you a lesson. Otherwise, a native from a remote place really doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Feng Xian, don't kill him. Just teach him a lesson. The martial flame hall master said calmly. Yes. The man named Feng Xian responded and strode forward, charging toward Chu Fengmian. Feng Xian's muscles bulged. He should have cultivated a kind of body refinement technique. You're not worthy of teaching this Chu Fengmian a lesson. Chu Fengmian sneered. With a move of his palm, he grabbed at Feng Xian. When Feng Xian saw Chu Fengmian's action, he laughed inwardly. As a body refinement cultivator, his body was extremely strong. It was impossible for a body refinement stage warrior to grab him. However, in the next moment, he felt an unprecedented power. Under Chu Fengmian's power, Feng Xian had no strength to resist. In the blink of an eye, Chu Fengmian grabbed his shoulder and smashed him to the ground. Bang! There was a loud sound. A large pit was formed on the ground. Feng Xian was now lying in the pit. His flesh had been torn apart, and he no longer had the strength to stand up. Chu Fengmian's attack was enough to tear apart Feng Xian's flesh and blood, destroying his cultivation base in an instant. Feng Xian, who was at the peak of the body refinement stage, was defeated by Chu Fengmian in a single blow. Feng Xian's strength was not as strong as the Lin Mansion Master. Now that Chu Fengmian had condensed the second drop of ancient war dragon essence blood, even the Lin Mansion Master would be defeated in 3 moves. Feng Xian was no match for Chu Fengmian's move. You're courting death by competing with me in terms of strength. The corners of Chu Fengmian's mouth curled into a mocking smile. No matter how strong a person was, how could he compete with the ancient war dragon? Now that Chu Fengmian had the ancient war dragon bloodline, his strength was many times stronger than the warrior he was looking for. Chu Fengmian was not afraid of even a divine sea realm warrior. What a terrifying kid! The martial flame hall master looked at Chu Fengmian and was shocked. He was well aware of Feng Xian's strength. Almost no one in the body refinement stage was a match for him. Even if he wanted to defeat Feng Xian, he would have to use a weapon. Feng Xian was almost invincible among the younger generation of the Martial Victory Academy. However, he was easily defeated by Chu Fengmian in a single blow. Chu Fengmian's strength was at least twice as strong as Feng Xian's to be able to achieve this. There are indeed countless fortuitous encounters. A kid from a remote place actually has such strength. It seems like his fortuitous encounter is not small. The greed in the martial flame hall master's eyes intensified. The stronger Chu Fengmian was, the greater the greed in his heart. If he could seize Chu Fengmian's fortuitous encounter, his strength might improve by leaps and bounds in the future. What a ruthless move. Junior, don't you think you've gone overboard? The martial flame hall master looked at Feng Xian, who was lying on the ground. Seeing that Feng Xian's cultivation had been destroyed, his face turned ugly. What? You're all here to kill me. Today, either you die or I die. Do you expect me to show mercy? Chu Fengmian said coldly. He would not show mercy to his enemies. What a good either you die or I die. It seems that a junior like you really thinks you're a big shot after a few fortuitous encounters. The martial flame hall master said coldly. Chapter 58. It was the fire control technique. The martial flame hall master was a divine sea realm warrior. He used the fire control technique as soon as he made his move. he already knew that Chu Fengmian's strength was extremely terrifying. If he competed with Chu Fengmian in strength, he would not gain any advantage. Now that he used the fire control technique, he could deal with Chu Fengmian's weakness. Unfortunately, his opponent this time around was not Chu Fengmian. "Shopkeeper Xian, make your move." Chu Fengmian softly said a few words. A gust of spiritual wind suddenly shot out from Chu Fengmian's side. The flames unleashed by Wu Yan, the great patriarch, were easily extinguished. "Who are you?" The martial flame hall master looked at Xian Jingtai and asked. He originally thought that Xian Jingtai should also be a body-refining realm warrior. Naturally, he did not take Xian Jingtai seriously. However, he did not expect Xian Jingtai to know how to control the 5 elements spiritual energy. This meant that Xian Jingtai was at least a Divine Sea Realm warrior. Divine Sea Realm warriors were extremely rare in Wuxing country, let alone in the remote 13 southwest cities. There were almost no Divine Sea Realm warriors. Xian Jingtai's appearance was extremely unfamiliar to him. "I'm going to kill your man." Xian Jingtai looked at the martial flame hall master. Without saying anything, he moved his hands. A gust of wind swept over and crazily attacked the hall master of the martial flame hall. "Kill me? I don't know if you have the ability to do so." The martial flame hall master also roared. They were both Divine Sea Realm warriors. He was not afraid of anyone. At the same time, he moved his hands and shot out a flame. The two forces, one fire and one wind, collided in the air. With a loud bang, the flame was extinguished. The strength of the two sides was not on the same level. "Impossible. Who are you? How can you have such terrifying strength?" The martial flame hall master did not expect that his flame would be suppressed in an instant. This seemingly inconspicuous martial artist in front of him actually possessed such terrifying strength. This kind of strength was not something a Divine Sea Realm warrior could achieve. As warriors of the Spirit Sea Realm, it was easy to suppress the other, but it was extremely difficult to completely defeat the other. However, Xian Jingtai's few casual moves had already made the martial flame hall's hall master somewhat unable to withstand them. Wind-controlling realm. This is the strength of a wind-resisting realm martial artist. The martial flame hall master looked at Xian Jingtai and shouted in disbelief. Why would a wind-controlling realm martial artist listen to a brat's orders? The martial flame hall master couldn't believe it. Even in Wuxing Academy, there were only a few wind-resistance realm martial artists. In the entire Wuxing nation, there were less than 10 of them. But now, such a wind-controlling realm warrior actually chose to listen to Chu Fengmian's orders. How could he believe it? Too much nonsense. Xian Jingtai snorted coldly. He didn't want to waste his breath with the martial flame hall's hall master. Suddenly, his palm moved, and another gust of wind suddenly shot out. The martial flame hall master's body was torn apart by this gust of wind. His body shattered and turned into a mist of blood that scattered in the air. A Divine Sea Realm martial artist died so easily in the hands of Xian Jingtai. On the other side, Chu Fengmian also looked in the direction of the martial flame hall disciples except for the martial flame hall master. The first one he fixed his eyes on was the arrogant man, the young hall master of the martial flame hall, Ding Hao. "Brat, you were lucky to escape last time. This time, you came to me again. It seems that you really want to die." Chu Fengmian looked at Ding Hao and sneered. Last time, Ding Hao forced Chu Fengmian to retreat with the help of the protective jade talisman. This time, even if Ding Hao still had the protective jade talisman, Chu Fengmian could shatter it with one punch. "Quick, come and save me!" Ding Hao shouted loudly as he watched Chu Fengmian approaching step by step. His face was already pale. Chu Fengmian had just defeated Feng Xian with one move. This kind of strength was extremely terrifying. Ding Hao didn't even dare to resist. "Protect the young hall master." The disciples of the martial flame hall hurriedly dismounted from their horses and stood in front of them. These people's strength was not even as strong as Feng Xian. To Chu Fengmian, they were like ants. Oh? Do you think that you can stop me with just the few of you? Chu Fengmian sneered and threw a punch at Ding Hao. This punch contained an endless fist wind. In an instant, the disciples of the martial flame hall in front of Ding Hao were all sent flying by this punch. At the same time, Chu Fengmian grabbed Ding Hao's throat. The protective jade talisman on Ding Hao's chest was activated again. A barrier blocked Chu Fengmian's way again. Oh? It seems that your father still loves you very much. He actually gave you another protective jade talisman. Unfortunately, this protective jade talisman is useless in my eyes. Chu Fengmian sneered. He clenched his fist and threw another punch. Bang! The protective jade talisman was shattered by the punch. The spiritual jade inside was also shattered. Then, Chu Fengmian grabbed Ding Hao's neck and broke it with a pinch of her hand. Run! Seeing that the martial flame hall master and Ding Hao were dead, the disciples of the martial flame hall began to shout. Everyone was terrified upon hearing the news, and they all wanted to escape. Want to run away? Don't even think about leaving today. Chu Fengmian shouted coldly. He did not want to expose his body movement, swordsmanship, and strength. If the Martial Victory Academy knew about it, it would bring endless trouble to Chu Fengmian. Since these people wanted to kill Chu Fengmian, there was no reason for Chu Fengmian to let them go. Phantom. Chu Fengmian activated the phantom body movement technique. Suddenly, Chu Fengmian's body swayed strangely. In the blink of an eye, he was in front of a martial flame hall disciple and threw a punch at his chest. Boom! The disciple's heart was shattered by Chu Fengmian's punch. Many of the other martial flame hall disciples also wanted to run away. However, in Chu Fengmian's hands, they did not even have the right to escape. Bang! Boom! Each punch and palm represented the death of a martial flame hall disciple. In less than 5 minutes, more than a dozen martial flame hall disciples had died in Chu Fengmian's hands. You are so decisive at such a young age. Xian Jingtai looked at him and praised in his heart. Generally, young martial artists were indecisive. Many times, if they were not vicious enough, they would be the ones to suffer in the future. If Chu Fengmian had not killed those martial flame hall disciples, Xian Jingtai would have killed them. Chapter 59. These disciples of the Wuyan Hall have given me a windfall. Chu Fengmian thought to himself as he held more than 10 storage pouches in his hand. These storage pouches were obtained from the disciples of the martial arts hall. The last time Chu Fengmian was in the barbaric mountains, he seized a batch of storage pouches from Ding Hao's servants and obtained a large amount of wealth. That was why Chu Fengmian had enough resources to condense the second drop of primordial war dragon blood essence. This time around, the disciples of the martial arts hall were true elites and not servants. Hence, the wealth on their bodies was definitely much greater than the previous ones. Especially this time, the martial arts hall master and young hall master Ding Hao had died in the hands of Chu Fengmian and Xian Jingtai. The two of them must have a large amount of wealth on them. These are for you. This old man has helped you this time. I still owe you 2 favors. Xian Jingtai looked at Chu Fengmian. With a wave of his hand, he threw a storage pouch at Chu Fengmian. With Xian Jingtai's strength in the wind-controlling realm, he really did not care about the storage pouch of a divine sea realm warrior. However, this storage pouch was a huge fortune for Chu Fengmian. In order to condense the second drop of primordial war dragon blood essence, Chu Fengmian had consumed all his accumulated spiritual power. It could be said that Chu Fengmian was now poor. This time, these warriors of the Wuyan Hall had given Chu Fengmian a big gift. Chu Fengmian did not stand on ceremony and took the storage pouch. If he wanted to condense more primordial war dragon blood essence, he would need more elixirs. Wealth was what Chu Fengmian needed most now. In addition to these storage pouches, the remaining dozen black scale horses were also a huge fortune. I wonder if shopkeeper Xian is interested in this batch of black scale horses. Chu Fengmian said with a smile. I'm alone. I don't need so many black scale horses. Oh? These black scale horses can be sold for a good price no matter where they are placed. However, since young Master Chu is interested in our 1,000 Weapons Pavilion, we will accept this batch of black scale horses. Xian Jingtai said with a smile. The black scale horses were definitely popular goods. No matter which force they were sold to, they could be sold at a high price. Since he was going to sell it to the 10,000 Weapons Pavilion, he was naturally happy to eat it. How about exchanging a batch of these black-scaled horses for 100 qi-gathering pills? Xian Jingtai smiled and said. He could also see that Chu Fengmian was in dire need of medicinal pills, so naturally, he quoted the price in terms of qi-amassing pills. 100 qi-gathering pills is equivalent to 100,000 bone-tempering pills. This price is extremely fair. Chu Fengmian thought to himself. Alright, we'll use this price. A total of 18 black-scaled horses will be exchanged for 1,800 qi-gathering pills. No problem. When we return to the 10,000 Weapons Pavilion, this old man will send someone to deliver it. Xian Jingtai laughed and said. If this batch of black-scaled horses were bought by the 1,000 Weapons Pavilion, it would be enough to increase the 1,000 Weapons Pavilion's power by 50%. Oh right, I wonder if young Master Chu is interested in fighting this black-scaled horse king? Xian Jingtai looked at the tallest black-scaled horse king beside Chu Fengmian and asked with interest. This black-scaled horse king was the king of the black-scaled horses. Its leg strength was comparable to a wind-resisting realm martial artist. Especially its terrifying endurance, it could run continuously for 7 days. Regardless of whether it was in a hurry, a pursuit, or an escape, it was an excellent method. For a wind-resisting realm martial artist like Xian Jingtai, he could only last for 3 days at most before his spiritual energy ran out. It was impossible for him to compete with the black-scaled horse king in endurance. It could be said that even a wind-resisting realm martial artist like Xian Jingtai couldn't help but be tempted by the black-scaled horse king. If young Master Chu is willing to fight, this old man is willing to buy it for 5,000 qi-gathering pills. How about that? Xian Jingtai thought for a moment and said. 5,000 qi-gathering pills was equivalent to 5 million bone-tempering pills. It was comparable to half of the wealth of the Lin Mansion. One should know that the wealth of the Lin Mansion was only around 10 million bone-tempering pills. This price made Chu Fengmian slightly tempted. Once he obtained 5,000 qi-gathering pills, Chu Fengmian could condense the third or even the fourth drop of ancient war dragon blood essence in an instant. However, Chu Fengmian thought for a while and shook his head. This black-scaled horse king was also very useful to Chu Fengmian. It was comparable to a wind-resisting realm martial artist and had many uses. It wasn't worth exchanging it for pills. Since young Master Chu doesn't want to fight, this old man won't force you. If young Master Chu is interested in it, you can come find this old man again. Xian Jingtai said with a smile. A businessman would never force others to do business. There would be plenty of time in the future. He had already established a good relationship with Chu Fengmian. They would meet again in the future. Let's go back to the 1,000 Weapons Pavilion. Chu Fengmian muttered and rode on the black-scaled horse king. Although the black-scaled horse was very fast, it had a weak temperament. As long as he showed a little strength, it would be tamed. Because of this, the black-scaled horse was also the favorite mount of many disciples. It didn't require much strength to tame. Now that Chu Fengmian was riding on the black-scaled horse king, its speed was even faster than a wind-resisting realm martial artist. With their speed, they returned to Martial Forest City in less than 2 hours. Their speed was more than twice as fast as when they left. As soon as they returned to the 1,000 Weapons Pavilion, Chu Fengmian went straight to the secret room on the 3rd floor. Chu Fengmian couldn't wait to open the treasures in the storage pouches. He opened the storage pouch of the first Martial Flame Hall disciple. There were more than 500 energy-gathering pills in it. Even an ordinary disciple of the Martial Flame Hall had such wealth. Chu Fengmian couldn't help but sigh. It was no wonder that the disciples of the victorious martial country were so strong. The resources they had were not something other forces could compare with. Even the #1 genius of the Lin Mansion, Lin Chengfeng, wouldn't be able to get 50 energy-gathering pills in a year. Now, any random disciple of the Martial Flame Hall had more than 500 energy-gathering pills in their storage pouches. However, these disciples of the Martial Flame Hall weren't the most ordinary disciples. Those who could follow the Martial Flame Hall master here were the elites of the Martial Flame Hall. It was a pity that they had come to seek their own deaths. Now that they had died in Chu Fengmian's hands, their wealth would all belong to Chu Fengmian. He opened the storage pouches of the remaining disciples of the Martial Flame Hall. Some had more energy-gathering pills, some had less. There were at least 200 to 300 of them. The one with the most energy-gathering pills had more than 800 of them. Chapter 60. More than 6,000 energy-gathering pills were placed in front of him. It was a spectacular sight. Such a large amount of wealth was enough to buy a black scale horse king. It was equivalent to half of the Lin Mansion's wealth. This was only the wealth in the storage bags of the disciples of the Martial Flame Hall. Among all the storage bags, the two most important ones were the ones Chu Fengmian was looking forward to the most. He had yet to open them. Let's see what's in Ding Hao's storage bag. Chu Fengmian picked up the storage bag of the young master of the Martial Flame Hall and injected spiritual energy into it. A space suddenly opened. Chu Fengmian looked inside, but a disappointed expression appeared on his face. Most of the items in Ding Hao's storage bag were wine and toys. Even the energy-gathering pills were only a little more than 100. He is indeed a dandy young master. There are not many elixirs for cultivation, but there is a lot of wine. Chu Fengmian was speechless when he saw more than 100 jars of wine stuffed to the brim with the storage bag. His anticipation was a bit wasted. Chu Fengmian could only place his last hope in the storage bag of the Martial Flame Hall master. A storage bag of a divine Sea Realm warrior. Don't let me down. Chu Fengmian muttered to himself. He had placed all his hopes in the storage bag of the Martial Flame Hall master. A surge of spiritual energy was injected into the storage bag, causing it to open abruptly. At a glance, one could see countless jade bottles placed in rows within. There were a total of 50 jade bottles, all of which were filled with energy-gathering pills. The wealth of the Martial Flame Hall master is indeed amazing. There are more than 10,000 energy-gathering pills. Chu Fengmian's lips curled into a smile. He was now so poor that he was scared. To cultivate the dragon battling skill and gather the blood essence of the ancient battle dragon, he needed a large number of elixirs to provide spiritual energy. Chu Fengmian was really rich this time with more than 10,000 energy-gathering pills. Apart from the energy-gathering pills, Chu Fengmian also saw 7 spiritual weapons. Among these 7 spiritual artifacts, the 2 most powerful ones were low-grade profound-grade spiritual artifacts, while the rest were top-grade yellow-grade spiritual artifacts. If these spiritual weapons were to be sold, they would be worth quite a bit of wealth. Other than that, there wasn't much else. Just as Chu Fengmian was about to close the storage bag, a pure spiritual power came from the storage bag and made Chu Fengmian stop. He looked inside the bag of holding again. In the deepest part of the bag of holding was a milky white rock that attracted Chu Fengmian's attention. The pure spiritual energy he had just felt came from this milky white rock. What is this? It doesn't look like a spiritual jade, but it contains such pure spiritual energy. Chu Fengmian picked up the milky white rock with a puzzled look in his eyes. Even with his knowledge, he could not tell what this milky white rock was. Oh? I didn't expect you to have obtained such a good item. Not bad. With it, you should be able to condense the 3rd drop of ancient war dragon's blood essence. Xing Xian's lazy voice sounded in Chu Fengmian's mind. It seemed that he had woken up after sensing the pure spiritual energy in this milky white rock. What is this? Chu Fengmian asked in surprise. Every time he condensed the ancient war dragon's blood essence, it was several times more difficult than the previous time. The resources required were also several times more. Last time, Chu Fengmian spent more than 500 qi-gathering pills to condense it. However, this time, even if Chu Fengmian spent 5,000 qi-gathering pills, he might not be able to do it. The more ancient war dragon's blood essence he awakened, the more powerful he would be. However, the resources required would also be more. Now that Chu Fengmian had gathered so many qi-gathering pills, he did not choose to cultivate. It was because he wanted to wait until he had accumulated more qi-gathering pills so that he could devour all of them together to condense the third drop of ancient war dragon's blood essence. However, Xing Xian had just said that with this milky white rock, Chu Fengmian would have a chance to condense the third drop of ancient war dragon's blood essence. Can't you see? In the 9 regions, only the subterranean spirit milk can produce such pure spiritual energy. Xing Xian's voice was as indifferent as usual. He did not seem to be willing to explain further. Usually, Xing Xian would be in a deep sleep. He would only appear when Chu Fengmian was cultivating to give him some pointers. This time around, it seemed that he had only appeared because he was interested in the milky white rock. Underground spiritual milk? Chu Fengmian was surprised. Chu Fengmian naturally knew what the underground spiritual milk was. In this world, the purest spiritual energy was not medicinal pellets. Instead, it was the boundless earth veins hidden beneath the 9 regions. The underground spiritual milk was actually a kind of spiritual medicine produced by the condensation of the spiritual energy in the earth veins. The spiritual energy contained in a single drop of underground spiritual milk was comparable to that of ordinary heaven-level medicinal pellets. The value of the underground spiritual milk even surpassed that of heaven-level medicinal pellets. The reason for that was because regardless of what medicinal pellet or how high its grade was, there would always be impurities in it. When refining it, one would need to expel the impurities from it. However, this subterranean spiritual milk was completely condensed from the purest spiritual energy. There was not a single drop of impurities in it. There was no need to refine it after swallowing it. Even a pig could refine it for cultivation. However, the underground spiritual milk was supposed to be a milky white liquid. However, it was a rock at the moment. Did the subterranean spiritual milk drip into the rock? Chu Fengmian suddenly understood. The spiritual energy that the rock was emitting was actually the spiritual energy of the underground spiritual milk in the rock. However, for some unknown reason, the underground spiritual milk had fused with the rock. Therefore, it could only emit spiritual energy. As long as I can extract the underground spiritual milk from the rock, I might be able to condense the third drop of the ancient war dragon's blood essence. Chu Fengmian thought to himself. He naturally knew how miraculous the underground spiritual milk was. In his previous life, the master of the sword principle had found the underground spiritual milk for Chu Fengmian to condense the spiritual pulse. Chu Fengmian had felt the pure and enormous spiritual energy before. However, Chu Fengmian did not have the spiritual pulse at that time. The spiritual energy only lasted for a short time before it dissipated. However, Chu Fengmian had personally experienced the effects of the underground spiritual milk. He naturally knew how terrifying the effects of the underground spiritual milk were. Little guy, if you don't know how to extract the underground spiritual milk, you can come and beg me. I can tell you. Chapter 61. The subterranean spiritual milk had completely fused with the rock. Chu Fengmian felt like he was facing a treasure chest that he couldn't open without the key. If he didn't extract the subterranean spiritual milk, he couldn't swallow the entire rock. No need. Chu Fengmian revealed a confident smile. Extracting the subterranean spiritual milk wasn't a problem for him. Oh? Xing Xian was slightly surprised by Chu Fengmian's answer, but he didn't continue to speak. Instead, he quietly observed Chu Fengmian. He wanted to see how Chu Fengmian could extract the subterranean spiritual milk. Chu Fengmian picked up the milky white rock and walked toward the center of the secret chamber. At the center of the secret chamber was a huge alchemy furnace. Looking at the surrounding traces, it should be the place Xian Jingtai used to refine pills. Refining pills? Xing Xian looked at Chu Fengmian's actions and naturally understood what he wanted to do. However, he was extremely surprised. Chu Fengmian was so young, how could he know alchemy? Alchemy wasn't an easy task. In the entire victorious Wu country, there were less than 100 alchemists. Most of them could only refine middle-grade and low-grade yellow-level alchemists. There were less than 10 alchemists who could refine top-grade yellow-level elixirs. Those who could truly be called high-grade alchemists and refine profound-level elixirs were less than 5. Victorious Wu country had a population of more than 100 million, but there were only 100 alchemists. They were truly 1 in a million, even rarer than martial arts geniuses. It was already difficult for Chu Fengmian to cultivate martial arts at such a young age, but now, it seemed that Chu Fengmian also knew alchemy. Chu Fengmian naturally didn't care about Xing Xian's thoughts. He walked to the side of the alchemy furnace and sat down. Chu Fengmian moved his hands and poured spiritual energy into the alchemy furnace. A ball of flame burned from within. A middle-grade black-level alchemy furnace. Although it's not very good, it can still be used. Chu Fengmian glanced at the alchemy furnace and curled his lips. He seemed to dislike it. However, times had changed, and he couldn't find a better alchemy furnace, so he could only use it for now. One of Chu Fengmian's hands was placed on a formation on the cauldron. When refining pills, the most important thing was to control the flame. However, only warriors above the Divine Sea realm could use the art of controlling fire. However, most of the alchemists were not obsessed with martial arts. Naturally, it was impossible for them to reach the Spirit Sea realm. Therefore, when refining alchemy cauldrons, they would engrave a flame-controlling array on the alchemy cauldron. It was used as a fire-controlling technique. When refining pills, one of his hands had to be placed here at all times in order to control the flame. The flame was the key to refining pills. Controlling the temperature of the flame was the most important thing for every alchemist. If the temperature of the flame was too low, it would not be able to completely melt the spiritual herbs. Naturally, the refinement would not be successful. If the temperature of the flame was too high, it would burn the pills and destroy them completely. Therefore, the knowledge of controlling flames was extremely important. Chu Fengmian sat to the side, constantly controlling the flame with his hand. The flame in the furnace was sometimes big and sometimes small. Chu Fengmian was familiarizing himself with it. He had not refined pills for a long time. Naturally, he had to familiarize himself with it for a while. It was not until 5 minutes later that Chu Fengmian finally opened his eyes. His eyes were filled with incomparable confidence. "Go!" Chu Fengmian shouted and threw the milky white rock into the alchemy cauldron. As soon as the milky white rock entered the alchemy cauldron, it was covered by 3 layers of flame. The 3 layers of flame surrounded the milky white rock and refined the subterranean spirit milk from different directions. 3 layers of flame controlling technique? This little guy actually knows this kind of technique that only alchemists know? Xing Xian watched Chu Fengmian's actions in his mind and was also shocked. The most important standard to evaluate an alchemist was the control of the flame. For example, there were hundreds of different kinds of ingredients for some high-grade pills. If one used the first layer of flame to refine the pills, some of the ingredients would be wasted before they were completely melted. Therefore, at that time, one must use the second layer of flame controlling technique, or even the third layer of flame controlling technique. Multitasking, or even 3, was an extremely difficult thing to do. In particular, the flame controlling technique required one to be completely focused. If one was careless, the temperature would rise and one's pill would be destroyed. Those who could control 2 layers of flame were the best among alchemists. In the entire victorious Wu country, there might not be a single alchemist who could control 2 layers of flame. Alchemists who could control 3 layers of flame at the same time were extremely rare in the entire 9 regions. Which one of them was not a famous alchemist? All of them were over 100 years old. For example, Chu Fengmian, who was not even 20 years old, actually knew 3 layers of flame controlling technique. Xing Xian even thought that the memories he had in the past were fake. When did such a terrifying monster appear in the 9 regions? However, Xing Xian would never have thought that Chu Fengmian, who was not even 20 years old, had experienced hundreds of years in his body. Under the tutelage of the Sword Dao Master, Chu Fengmian wanted to cultivate martial arts, but he returned empty-handed every time. Disappointed, he tried other things. In the path of alchemy, his attainments were extremely high. In the past, he was able to refine heaven-grade pills, but that was only possible with the help of the Sword Dao Master's cauldron. However, even now, it was not a problem for Chu Fengmian to condense the subterranean spiritual milk from the rock. Subterranean spiritual milk, come out. Chu Fengmian observed the situation in the cauldron. He saw that the milky white rock had been burned red. The spiritual power within was also becoming more and more condensed. Chu Fengmian knew that this was what the subterranean spiritual milk looked like. The subterranean spiritual milk was condensed from the purest spiritual power in the world. It was definitely not something that could be burned by flames. Therefore, Chu Fengmian wanted to condense all the subterranean spiritual milk in the milky white rock. Then, he would destroy the rock and extract the subterranean spiritual milk. Now is the time. Chu Fengmian's eyes became serious as he made up his mind. Another flame suddenly appeared in the cauldron. Flames of the 4 symbols. The 4 flames formed a large array in the cauldron. The milky white rock within the cauldron shattered with a boom. Chapter 62. At that moment, the drop of underground spiritual milk in Chu Fengmian's palm was milky white. Just by holding it in his hand, Chu Fengmian could feel the extremely pure spiritual energy of the underground spiritual milk. It's a pity that almost 1/3 of the spiritual energy of the underground spiritual milk has been released. Now, only about 70% of the spiritual energy is left. Chu Fengmian took a glance at the underground spiritual milk inside. At that moment, the drop of underground spiritual milk had merged with the rock and had already released 30% of the spiritual energy. Only about 70% of the spiritual energy was left. However, this 70% of spiritual energy was enough to be called something that Chu Fengmian greatly needed. If it's a complete drop of underground spiritual milk, I'm confident that I can condense the 3rd drop of ancient war dragon's blood essence. However, if it's only about 70%, Chu Fengmian looked at the underground spiritual milk in his palm and frowned. It would be difficult to condense the 3rd drop of ancient war dragon's blood essence with the underground spiritual milk. Fortunately, Chu Fengmian did not only obtain this drop of underground spiritual milk but also tens of thousands of qi-gathering pills. It would not be difficult to condense the 3rd drop of ancient war dragon's blood essence. Once it's condensed, I'm afraid my strength will be enough to fight against a divine sea realm expert. Chu Fengmian was looking forward to it. This time, the awakening of the ancient war dragon's blood essence was enough to increase his strength tremendously. At that moment, Chu Fengmian had only awakened 2 drops of ancient war dragon's blood essence. His strength was already comparable to a peak body refining realm expert. He could even defeat him easily. If he could awaken the 3rd drop of ancient war dragon's blood essence, Chu Fengmian's strength would definitely be comparable to a divine sea realm expert. It might even be possible for him to defeat a divine sea realm expert. Condense. Chu Fengmian closed his eyes and consumed the drop of underground spiritual milk. As soon as the underground spiritual milk entered his mouth, it instantly turned into extremely pure spiritual energy and filled the ancient war dragon's shadow in Chu Fengmian's body. Layers of spiritual energy were accumulating. After a long time, another drop of ancient war dragon's blood essence was gradually condensing. However, at that moment, a sense of emptiness of spiritual energy suddenly filled Chu Fengmian's mind. As expected, the drop of underground spirit milk's spiritual energy was not enough to condense the 3rd drop of ancient war dragon's blood essence. However, Chu Fengmian was already prepared. A bottle of energy-gathering pills was picked up by Chu Fengmian and countless energy-gathering pills were poured into his mouth. When Chu Fengmian refined this energy-gathering pill, he was able to devour the spiritual energy within it in an instant. In the blink of an eye, the entire bottle of qi-amassing pills was completely refined by Chu Fengmian. Still not enough. After consuming a bottle of qi condensation pills, Chu Fengmian felt that his spiritual power was still greatly depleted. Thus, he took out another bottle of energy-gathering pills and continued to consume them. One bottle after another. In front of Chu Fengmian, countless empty bottles of qi-amassing pills were arranged in a row. In a short span of a few minutes, Chu Fengmian had swallowed over 1,000 energy-gathering pills. This kind of spiritual energy was already enough to burst a martial artist at the third level of the body refining stage. However, Chu Fengmian still felt that he needed more spiritual energy. The ancient war dragon's shadow in his body was like an eternally hungry eater. No matter how much spiritual energy was poured into it, it would be completely devoured by it. 1,000 pills. Another 1,000 pills. Chu Fengmian did not know how many energy-gathering pills he had swallowed. However, at a glance, there were over 100 bottles in front of Chu Fengmian. This also meant that Chu Fengmian had swallowed over 10,000 energy-gathering pills. In front of him, there were only over 50 bottles of energy-gathering pills left. Finally, I'm almost at my limit. Chu Fengmian was taken aback when he realized that the amount of energy-gathering pills was just enough to satisfy the ancient war dragon Shadow's appetite. One should know that Chu Fengmian had refined a drop of underground spiritual milk. Without the underground spiritual milk, Chu Fengmian would have needed 20,000 or even 30,000 qi-amassing pills to condense the third drop of primordial war dragon's blood essence. The wealth of the Lin Mansion could not exceed 10,000 energy-gathering pills. It could be said that Chu Fengmian had already consumed more than the wealth of the Lin Mansion in just 2 hours. However, Chu Fengmian could not help but feel heartache. As long as he could obtain power, this little bit of wealth was nothing. Wealth could be accumulated. However, power was what Chu Fengmian needed the most right now. Only with power could Chu Fengmian protect himself and avenge his master. Condense. Chu Fengmian roared furiously. Another drop of golden blood essence slowly condensed from the ancient war dragon's shadow on his body. The third drop of ancient war dragon's blood essence was finally condensed. The moment the drop of ancient war dragon's blood essence condensed, he felt that his realm had increased once again. 5th level body refining realm. This drop of ancient war dragon's blood essence allowed Chu Fengmian's realm to increase by 2 levels. In comparison, the power in his body was what shocked Chu Fengmian the most. This power was a few times stronger than when he had just condensed 2 drops of ancient war dragon's blood essence. Fong! Chu Fengmian stood up and grabbed something in front of him with one hand. Suddenly, Chu Fengmian grabbed a ball of wind spirit in front of him. Wind control technique. With just one move, he was able to capture the 5-element spirit. This was something that only a Divine Sea Realm martial artist could do. Currently, Chu Fengmian was able to do it with his 5th level body refining realm cultivation base. This also meant that Chu Fengmian's current strength was comparable to a real Divine Sea Realm martial artist. In other words, Chu Fengmian's strength was comparable to a real Divine Sea Realm martial artist. He did not rely on techniques to capture the 5-element spirit like the Mansion Master of Lin Mansion. Although the Mansion Master of Lin Mansion could also capture the 5 elements token, he still relied on the power of his techniques. His true strength was still far from a Divine Sea Realm martial artist. However, Chu Fengmian was able to do all of this with his own strength. He was only at the 5th level body refining realm and possessed the strength of a Divine Sea Realm martial artist. Even the countless geniuses in Wuxing Academy would not be able to achieve this. Even the geniuses in the 7 major sects might not be as terrifying and demonic as Chu Fengmian. This dragon battle skill was really terrifying. How is this a heaven-class skill? It had probably reached the level of a god-class skill. Chu Fengmian thought to himself. There was another level above the heaven class, which was the god class. Legend had it that only the gods of heaven and earth could reach this level. The god class skill had always been a rumor on the mainland. No one believed it. Chapter 63. The first stage of the Battle Dragon art required one to awaken 129,600 drops of ancient Battle Dragon blood essence to possess the power of an ancient Battle Dragon. Not to mention the second and third stage, just the first stage was already incomparable to the heaven-level cultivation arts in the 9 regions. Especially the harsh cultivation conditions of the Battle Dragon art. Only martial artists with divine pulse could cultivate it. If Chu Fengmian hadn't obtained the 9 transformation heaven seizing elixir, the bone fracture rebirth art, and the 9 transformation heaven seizing elixir, Chu Fengmian wouldn't have been able to obtain the spiritual pulse. Chu Fengmian believed that there wouldn't be another person in this world who could obtain the divine pulse like Chu Fengmian. Since it wasn't something that could be cultivated by martial artists, the Battle Dragon art could very well be a cultivation technique cultivated by deities. Deities were illusory existences. In his previous life, Chu Fengmian didn't believe in such things. However, ever since Chu Fengmian reincarnated, he suddenly believed in such things. There were indeed many things that he didn't know about. Perhaps there really was a deity in this world. If I can cultivate the second and third stage of the Battle Dragon art, I might really possess the power of a deity. Chu Fengmian exclaimed in his heart. These were still too far away. Now that Chu Fengmian could condense 129,600 drops of ancient Battle Dragon blood essence and cultivate the first stage of the Battle Dragon art to the extreme, he would possess the power of an ancient Battle Dragon. It was enough for Chu Fengmian to look down on the heroes. With the strength of the Divine Sea Realm, it shouldn't be a problem to deal with the Lin Mansion. Chu Fengmian sneered. The strongest person in the Lin Mansion, the Lin Mansion Master, was only at the peak of the body refining realm. Chu Fengmian was confident that he could easily defeat him. It seems like today is the day to solve the problem of the Lin Mansion. A cold smile emerged from the corners of Chu Fengmian's mouth. It was best to settle the matter of the Lin Mansion as soon as possible. Once the matter of the Lin Mansion was settled, Chu Fengmian would be free to roam around and there would be no need for him to continue staying in this remote Lingwu city. If he wanted to step into a higher realm and obtain more resources, Martial Forest City wasn't enough. Chu Fengmian had to go to a more prosperous place. Chu Fengmian already knew where to go. Over there was the capital of Wuxing country, the extreme capital. That was the core of Wuxing country, and the number 1 power of Wuxing country, Wuxing Academy, was located there. There, Chu Fengmian would be able to obtain more resources to cultivate his Battle Dragon art, allowing Chu Fengmian's strength to increase once more. Looks like young Master Chu's harvest this time is not small. Chu Fengmian bumped into Xian Jingtai the moment he stepped out of the door. Xian Jingtai glanced at Chu Fengmian and felt the surging spiritual energy on Chu Fengmian's body. Chu Fengmian had gone into seclusion twice. Every time he came out, his temperament would be completely different from before. His strength would also be countless times stronger. He had only known Chu Fengmian for 3 months. 3 months ago, Chu Fengmian could only be regarded as an emerging genius. Now, Chu Fengmian had truly matured. His strength was comparable to the Divine Sea Realm. In the entire 13 southwestern cities, he was no longer an expert of the younger generation, but a real figure at the peak. Young Master Chu, are you interested in joining the Tianjin sect? Xian Jingtai asked tentatively. Our Thousand Weapons Pavilion has some business dealings with the Tianjin sect. I have a good relationship with an outer sect deacon of the Tianjin sect. With young Master Chu's aptitude, it's a pity for you to stay in Wuxing country. Why don't you join the Tianjin sect? Xian Jingtai suddenly invited Chu Fengmian to join the Tianjin sect because of Chu Fengmian's aptitude. Reaching the Divine Sea Realm at the age of 18 was not bad in the Tianjin sect, but he couldn't even be regarded as a genius. There was a terrifying existence among the true geniuses of the Tianjin sect. At the age of 16, he stepped into the wind-controlling realm, the same realm as Xian Jingtai. Chu Fengmian's strength was nothing. However, Chu Fengmian's aptitude was terrifying to the extreme. In just 3 months, who would have thought that a good-for-nothing without a spiritual pulse would reach the Divine Sea Realm? With such aptitude, if he joined the Tianjian sect and received the resources of the Tianjian sect, he would naturally soar to the sky. In the future, Xian Jingtai's relationship with Chu Fengmian would be enough for him to obtain countless benefits. Therefore, he wanted to rope Chu Fengmian into joining the Tianjian sect. Chu Fengmian's face revealed a surprised expression. Chu Fengmian didn't pretend to be surprised. He didn't expect Xian Jingtai to do this. The Tianjian sect was one of the 7 great sects of the 9 regions. Although it claimed to have millions of disciples, in reality, most of them were slaves. Those who could truly be called disciples of the Heavenly Sword sect numbered in the thousands, the inner disciples numbered in the hundreds, and the core disciples numbered in the dozens. If one wanted to join the Tianjian sect, they had to go through layers of screening. However, Xian Jingtai's intention was to let Chu Fengmian directly join the Tianjian sect. This made Chu Fengmian even more suspicious of Xian Jingtai's identity. A shopkeeper of the 1,000 Weapons Pavilion couldn't possibly have such ability. Clearly, Xian Jingtai had another identity. How about it? I can guarantee that with young Master Chu's aptitude, joining the Tianjian sect won't be difficult, Xian Jingtai said with a smile. Xian Jingtai said with a smile. He thought that Chu Fengmian was merely shocked. After all, this was like a pie falling from the sky for anyone. After joining the Tianjian sect, even an outer disciple would be treated well by the royal family of the Wuxin country. They wouldn't dare to slight him in the slightest. The Tianjian sect was truly a colossus. Compared to it, the entire Wuxin country was like an insignificant ant. Thank you for your kindness, Xian Jingtai. However, I have no intention of joining the Tianjian sect. Chu Fengmian thought for a moment, then said calmly. Xian Jingtai was taken aback by this reply. He didn't expect Chu Fengmian to refuse his invitation to join the Tianjian sect. This was undoubtedly a pie falling from the sky. However, Chu Fengmian actually refused. In reality, this invitation was very tempting in Chu Fengmian's heart. If he could join the Tianjian sect, Chu Fengmian would naturally have access to the terrifying resources of the Tianjian sect. Then, his strength would increase rapidly. However, Chu Fengmian couldn't join the Tianjian sect. Chapter 64. Thank you for your kindness, shopkeeper Xian. Chu Fengmian said with a smile. Chu Fengmian knew that Xian Jingtai wanted to rope him in. All right then. Since young Master Chu is unwilling, I won't force you. Xian Jingtai thought for a moment and nodded with a smile. Clearly, there was an extremely terrifying expert behind Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian's unwillingness to join the Sky Sword sect might be due to the expert behind him. Seeing Chu Fengmian's rapid progress, Xian Jingtai was even more convinced that the expert behind Chu Fengmian was a terrifying existence. Otherwise, it would be impossible to cultivate such a terrifying genius. By the way, shopkeeper Xian, I obtained a batch of spiritual weapons from the storage pouch of the Martial Flame Hall's Hall Master. Does the Myriad Weapon Pavilion need them? Chu Fengmian suddenly asked. Chu Fengmian naturally knew that the Myriad Weapon Pavilion bought and sold spiritual weapons. However, this batch of spiritual weapons was no small matter. They belonged to the Martial Flame Hall's Hall Master. The death of the Martial Flame Hall's Hall Master couldn't be hidden from the Martial Victory Academy for long. Once the Martial Victory Academy investigated, this batch of spiritual weapons would be extremely dangerous. They might discover Chu Fengmian's identity. Therefore, if Chu Fengmian wanted to sell this batch of spiritual weapons, he needed a safe place. Oh? Young Master Chu was worried that this batch of spiritual weapons will be exposed. Xian Jingtai naturally understood Chu Fengmian's thoughts. He smiled and said, the Myriad Weapon Pavilion can buy these spiritual weapons. Our Myriad Weapon Pavilion's influence is spread throughout the 9 regions. If we don't sell them in the Martial Victory Nation, we can sell them in the Prideful Ancient Nation and the Dark Cloud Nation. These 2 nations were close to the Martial Victory Nation and were close to the other 2 nations. the Martial Victory Academy's influence could only affect the Martial Victory Nation. As long as this batch of spiritual weapons was sold in other nations, it wouldn't be a problem. The Myriad Weapon Pavilion's influence was spread throughout the 9 regions. This wasn't a difficult task for Xian Jingtai. All right. Chu Fengmian nodded. Xian Jingtai had indeed helped him a lot. It seemed that Chu Fengmian's decision to help him last time was a wise choice. Chu Fengmian took out a storage pouch from his waist and handed it to Xian Jingtai. There are 7 spiritual weapons of the Martial Flame Hall's Hall Master. Let me take a look. Xian Jingtai took the storage pouch and began to examine it. 5 top-grade yellow-grade spirit weapons, average in quality, about 100 energy-gathering pills each. The other 2 are profound-grade low-grade spirit artifacts. Their quality is not bad, and they cost about 3,000 chi-amassing pills. Xian Jingtai glanced at Chu Fengmian and smiled. Originally, our 1,000-weapon pavilion buys spiritual weapons at half price. Otherwise, you can place them in our 1,000-weapon pavilion for sale, and we will only take a portion of the handling fee. However, young Master Chu seems to be in need of elixirs recently. This old man will use my personal identity to purchase these spirit weapons first. I will give you the energy-gathering pills first. As Xian Jingtai spoke, he took out a storage pouch and handed it to Chu Fengmian. It just so happened to contain these 3,000 chi-gathering pills. Good, shopkeeper Xian is indeed forthright. Chu Fengmian said with a smile. Then, his figure moved and walked outside. Lin Mansion. Now, it was time to settle it. Chu Fengmian thought to himself. Now that he had inherited this body by chance, he naturally had to fulfill this body's final wish. This was the only way to settle all the grievances. The Lin Mansion was bustling as usual. However, the faces of the Lin Mansion disciples were not as relaxed as before. The entire Lin Mansion was in a state of tension. 3 days ago, Chu Fengmian caused havoc in the Lin Mansion. He killed the 4th and 5th elders of the Lin Mansion. Later, he even crippled the enforcement elder. In the end, he was forced to retreat by the Lin Mansion master. However, Chu Fengmian still managed to escape unscathed. Now, everyone in the Lin Mansion was worried about what to do when Chu Fengmian returned to the Lin Mansion. However, there were rumors that an old man of the Lin Mansion had returned to the Lin Mansion to deal with Chu Fengmian. Once that old man returned, Chu Fengmian would definitely be suppressed. Old man? There is a legendary great elder in the Lin Mansion. Dozens of years ago, he left the Lin Mansion to seek a breakthrough in his pursuit of the Divine Sea Realm. Chu Fengmian knew this story from his memory. However, most of the Lin Mansion disciples thought that this was a lie to improve the foundation of the Lin Mansion. Now, everyone in the Lin Mansion was talking about it. Obviously, there must be some truth in it. Not all of it was fake. So what if he is a Divine Sea Realm warrior? Chu Fengmian revealed a cold smile. Now that he had condensed the 3rd drop of ancient war dragon essence blood, his strength had increased tremendously. However, he had not fought with a Divine Sea Realm warrior yet. Even if a Divine Sea Realm warrior came, it was hard to tell who would win. Moreover, Chu Fengmian was confident that even a warrior at the peak of the Divine Sea Realm could not kill Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian could escape unscathed. Unless it was a warrior at the wind-controlling realm like Xian Jingtai, Chu Fengmian would not be easy to deal with. Chu Fengmian was not afraid of an old man at the Divine Sea Realm. Chu Fengmian swaggered all the way to the Lin Mansion without hiding anything. In front of the main gate of the Lin Mansion, a few disciples of the Lin Mansion noticed Chu Fengmian's arrival. Chu Fengmian? You dare to come back? A disciple of the Lin Mansion said when he saw Chu Fengmian. You were lucky to escape last time. How dare you come back to the Lin Mansion this time? Chu Fengmian said indifferently. Ask Lin Jingshan to come out. He was not interested in arguing with these disciples of the Lin Mansion. His target this time was only the number 1 person in the Lin Mansion, the Mansion Master, Lin Jingshan. How dare you? Is the name of the Lin Mansion's mansion master something a little bastard like you can call out? Before the disciple of the Lin Mansion could finish his words, Chu Fengmian had already appeared beside him. He kicked the disciple of the Lin Mansion. Immediately, the disciple of the Lin Mansion was knocked to the wall and rolled on the ground, spitting out mouthfuls of blood. The 3 spiritual meridians on his right arm suddenly broke apart. Chu Fengmian's kick had even broken his spiritual veins. I don't want to fight, but if anyone wants to die, I won't show mercy, Chu Fengmian said coldly. All the disciples of the Lin Mansion were silent. No one dared to make a sound. They knew how ruthless Chu Fengmian was. At this moment, whoever dared to come out would be courting death. Chu Fengmian, you little bastard. How dare you be so arrogant? A furious roar could be heard coming from the Lin Mansion. A figure dashed out from the Lin Mansion. Spiritual energy surged from this person's body. Chapter 65. However, this peak body refining realm martial artist wasn't the Lin Mansion master, but someone Chu Fengmian was familiar with. It was the Enforcement Elder. The Enforcement Elder of Lin Mansion. His cultivation had been crippled by Chu Fengmian, but he had regained his strength. In fact, his cultivation realm had increased significantly, reaching the peak of the body refining realm. It seemed like the Lin Mansion treated the Enforcement Elder well. They had given him an elixir that could restore his cultivation realm. This elixir was at least a black class upper grade elixir. The Enforcement Elder looked at Chu Fengmian with a cold smile. Little B****, you didn't expect this, did you? Not only did you not cause me to fall, but my strength has also increased. The Enforcement Elder laughed proudly. His cultivation realm had been stuck at the 7th level of the body refining realm for a long time, and he hadn't had the chance to make a breakthrough. Now that he had a life and death battle with Chu Fengmian and the elixir, he had regained his cultivation realm. Not only did it restore his cultivation realm, but it also increased his cultivation realm by 2 levels, reaching the peak of the body refining realm. His strength was comparable to the Lin Mansion master, Lin Jingshan. Enforcement Elder, with your strength, even if you break through 2 levels, you won't be a match for me. Chu Fengmian looked at the Enforcement Elder and shook his head. Chu Fengmian could easily defeat someone at the peak of the body refining realm with 2 drops of ancient war dragon blood essence. Moreover, Chu Fengmian had already condensed 3 drops of ancient war dragon blood essence. The Enforcement Elder's strength was no longer enough to pique Chu Fengmian's interest. Little B****. Arrogant. With my current strength, killing you is as easy as slaughtering a dog. The Enforcement Elder roared when he heard Chu Fengmian's words. His figure abruptly dashed out. With a grab of his hands, a heavy sword appeared in his hands. This heavy sword was made of black steel essence. Although it was only a yellow-class spiritual weapon, its weight was shocking. When the Enforcement Elder waved his hand, the stone bricks under his feet shattered because of the huge weight. Strength of 1,000 caddies. The Enforcement Elder roared, and the heavy sword slashed down at Chu Fengmian. This sword was earth-shattering and earth-shattering. Countless disciples of the Lin Mansion hurriedly retreated, fearing that they would be affected. The moment the sword was unleashed, it had already landed in front of Chu Fengmian in an instant. Chu Fengmian didn't react at all. No matter how strong Chu Fengmian's body movements were, it was impossible for him to dodge such a speed. Now that he had reached the peak of the body refining realm, the Enforcement Elder was extremely confident in his strength. Even the Lin Mansion master might not be able to block this sword. The law-enforcing elder was not the only one who thought so. None of the surrounding Lin Mansion disciples believed that Chu Fengmian would be able to block the sword. No matter how strong Chu Fengmian was, it was impossible for him to fight across so many realms. This was also exposed in the previous battle between Chu Fengmian and the Lin Mansion master. No matter how terrifying Chu Fengmian's strength was, it was still not enough to fight against a true martial artist at the peak of the body refining realm. However, no one would have thought that in just a day, Chu Fengmian's strength had actually grown to a completely different and terrifying level. Fight! Chu Fengmian frowned and his battle intent surged. In his body, 2 drops of ancient battle dragon essence blood were awakened, filling Chu Fengmian with strength. Chu Fengmian moved. His hand suddenly grabbed the falling heavy sword in front of him. What? Is this kid crazy? Chu Fengmian's action startled all the Lin Mansion disciples present. He wanted to take on the law enforcement elder's sword with his bare hands. Was he really crazy? The power of this sword was so powerful that even a body-refining realm martial artist would find it difficult to block it, let alone barehanded. Unless he was a divine sea realm martial artist, it was impossible for him to do this. Go to hell! The killing intent in the enforcement elder's eyes intensified. He exerted more strength in his hand and injected another stream of spiritual energy into the sword. His hatred for Chu Fengmian could only be resolved by killing Chu Fengmian. Bang! A series of sounds rang out. The scene of Chu Fengmian being chopped down by the sword didn't happen. On the contrary, it was another scene that no one dared to believe. Chu Fengmian's heavy sword was tightly gripped by the law enforcement elder. His sword was actually blocked by Chu Fengmian with his bare hands. Chu Fengmian's hand didn't even suffer a scratch. This terrifying sword seemed to be powerless in Chu Fengmian's hand. Impossible. Impossible. How did your strength become so terrifying? The enforcement elder shook his head crazily and shouted crazily. 3 days ago, when he fought with Chu Fengmian, their strength was on par. In the end, it was Chu Fengmian who exhausted the enforcement elder's spiritual energy and defeated him. The enforcement elder thought that he could completely crush Chu Fengmian with his strength after breaking through to the next realm. However, Chu Fengmian had managed to block his heavy sword with his bare hands. He even felt as if the heavy sword no longer belonged to him. No matter how hard the enforcement elder tried, he couldn't get the sword out of Chu Fengmian's hand. I've said that with your strength, you're not even qualified to fight with me. Chu Fengmian said indifferently. Do you want this sword? Before his voice died away, Chu Fengmian's hand moved. He grabbed the huge sword and threw it out. The enforcement elder's body was also thrown out. He didn't even have the strength to resist and was directly thrown out by Chu Fengmian. The enforcement elder's body and the sword in his hand were thrown out by Chu Fengmian at the same time. They smashed against the gate of Lin Mansion. Bang! A plaque fell to the ground and was smashed into 2 halves. The plaque of Lin Mansion, a 1,000-year-old plaque, was smashed. The enforcement elder didn't even have the strength to fight back. Many disciples of the Lin Mansion were stunned. The enforcement elder had recovered his cultivation and even reached the peak of the body-refining realm. In most of the disciples of Lin Mansion, it was enough to teach Chu Fengmian a lesson. Even if he couldn't teach Chu Fengmian a lesson, it was enough to force Chu Fengmian to retreat like last time. But now, the enforcement elder was like an ant in Chu Fengmian's hands. He could be crushed at will. Everyone knew that it wasn't because the enforcement elder was weak, but because Chu Fengmian was too strong. His strength had completely surpassed the enforcement elder. It was far beyond the peak of the body-refining realm. Could it be that Chu Fengmian has reached the divine sea realm? Chapter 66. Divine Sea Realm. In the 13 southwest cities, the Spirit Sea Realm was already a legendary and lofty realm. Currently, there was not a single Divine Sea Realm warrior in the entire Linwu city. In the Lin Mansion, only the legendary Great Elder of the Lin Mansion was a Spirit Sea Realm warrior. However, the Great Elder of the Lin Mansion was an antique who had lived for hundreds of years. He was once the family head of the Lin Mansion. No one was surprised that he had broken through to the Divine Sea Realm. However, how old was Chu Fengmian? He was only 20 years old. He was only 18 years old. Even if he started cultivating in his mother's womb, it was impossible for him to reach the Divine Sea Realm at the age of 18. Countless geniuses in the victorious Wu country couldn't do it. This must be the power of a demon. Isn't there a demon in Chu Fengmian's body? That's right. Go and ask the mansion master and the experts of the major families in the 13 cities to join forces and kill this demon. Countless disciples of the Lin mansion shouted. Quite a few of them ran outside. Whoever dares to leave will die. Chu Fengmian's lips curled into a cold smile. He didn't have much hatred for these disciples of the Lin mansion. However, if they wanted to find someone to deal with Chu Fengmian wouldn't let them go. Don't be afraid of him. Could it be that this brat really dares to kill us all? A disciple of the Lin mansion shouted bravely. Is that so? It's just killing. Why wouldn't I dare? Chu Fengmian's eyes were cold. He moved his hand and grabbed the disciple who had just spoken. His palm pierced through the disciple's chest. Chu Fengmian, you have really become a demon. Just you wait. 3 days later, our Lin mansion's grand elder will be back. At that time, you will be subdued. The other disciples of the Lin mansion shouted. Right now, all of their hopes rested on the first elder of the Lin mansion. Only the first elder of the Lin mansion could completely suppress and kill Chu Fengmian, a legendary warrior of the Divine Sea Realm. Chief Patriarch, so what if he is at the Divine Sea Realm? Chu Fengmian sneered in his heart when he heard the threats. Now that Chu Fengmian had awakened the third drop of primordial war dragon blood essence, he was not afraid at all when facing a Divine Sea Realm warrior. Seems like I have to do something before the Great Elder arrives. The Lin clan is way too chaotic right now, we need to maintain order. Seems like we have to establish a new order. Chu Fengmian said coldly and suddenly roared in front of him. Lin Jingshan, I know you're hiding in front. Come out. As Chu Fengmian spoke, his hand moved. He suddenly grabbed at an empty space not far in front of him. Chu Fengmian made a grabbing motion with both hands, and the wind wall shattered. The figure hidden within the wind wall was suddenly grabbed by Chu Fengmian. The head of the Lin mansion, Lin Jingshan, a martial artist at the pinnacle of the body refining realm, was caught in Chu Fengmian's hands like a little chick. Even Lin Jingshan himself hadn't expected Chu Fengmian's strength to be so terrifying. Previously, he had been using the wind spirit energy to hide his figure and observe Chu Fengmian's strength while hiding in a corner. However, his concealment couldn't escape Chu Fengmian's eyes. He was caught by Chu Fengmian in an instant. Fierce wind and cloud explosion. If he was caught by Chu Fengmian, he would be in real danger. Lin Jingshan naturally knew this. The moment he was caught by Chu Fengmian's spiritual energy, he suddenly made a move. An endless gale surrounded Lin Jingshan, trying to get rid of Chu Fengmian's spiritual energy. You want to get rid of me? Dream on. Chu Fengmian said coldly. The strength in his hand increased again. Suddenly, he caught Lin Jingshan's body completely. He threw him at Chu Fengmian's feet. Bang! Lin Jingshan's body rolled a few times on the ground and rolled to Chu Fengmian's feet. His face was extremely pale. It wasn't because Lin Jingshan was injured. Chu Fengmian didn't use his full strength when he attacked just now. Although Lin Jingshan was slightly injured, it was far from a serious injury. What really made him depressed was Chu Fengmian's strength. Now, he was really terrifying. His strength was enough to force Chu Fengmian to retreat last time. But this time, he couldn't resist at all in Chu Fengmian's hands. As the Lin mansion's mansion master, he, who had always been high and mighty, had fallen to such a state. This little bastard's strength. How can he be so terrifying? Are all the people from the family Chu so terrifying and monstrous? I can't beat that old man, but I can't even beat a junior like him. As the #1 person in Lin Mansion, he had always been invincible. Now, he was being stepped on by a junior like Chu Fengmian. His heart was full of humiliation. This kind of humiliation was enough to make Lin Jingshan's hidden strength erupt completely. Little bastard. Today, I will definitely kill you. The humiliation I suffered will be returned to you in double. Lin Jingshan's aura changed. It became countless times stronger than before. He broke free from Chu Fengmian's spiritual energy and stood up abruptly. Beside Lin Jingshan, countless terrifying wind spirits were whistling. Surrounded by the five elements spirits, this was the characteristic of a divine sea realm warrior. Previously, Lin Jingshan could only use the five elements spirits with the help of spells. But now, he could do it with a wave of his hand. Divine Sea Realm. Under this humiliation, Lin Jingshan stimulated the potential in his body and broke through to the Divine Sea Realm, becoming a Divine Sea Realm warrior. The Mansion Master is invincible. Mansion Master, we must kill this demon today. Make the Lin Mansion famous. Countless Lin Mansion disciples were already ashen-faced. Especially when they saw Lin Jingshan being thrown to the ground by Chu Fengmian, they lost all hope. But suddenly, Lin Jingshan's burst of strength gave them hope. Divine Sea Realm. This was a realm completely different from the body-refining realm. The strength of a Divine Sea Realm warrior was enough to deal with countless warriors at the peak of the body-refining realm. So what if Chu Fengmian was powerful? Could he be a match for a Divine Sea Realm warrior? Oh? In times of crisis, it gave you an opportunity to make a breakthrough. Seeing Lin Jingshan break through, Chu Fengmian was slightly surprised, but he wasn't too surprised. In a life-and-death battle, it was very possible to break through. Especially when a warrior was humiliated, it was enough to stimulate the potential in his body. But unfortunately, even if Lin Jingshan's potential was stimulated and he stepped into the Divine Sea Realm, it was still the same in Chu Fengmian's eyes. Chapter 67. Little bastard, you didn't expect this, did you? I actually made a breakthrough in this desperate situation. It seems that the heavens are protecting our Lin Mansion. They don't want our Lin Mansion to be destroyed in the hands of a little bastard like you. Lin Jingshan laughed loudly. The moment he stepped into the Divine Sea Realm, he felt that his current strength was 10 times stronger than before. This was the true strength of the Divine Sea Realm. It was completely different from the body-refining realm. He was confident that he could deal with and suppress Chu Fengmian. Do you think you can escape just because you made a breakthrough? Chu Fengmian looked at Lin Jingshan and sneered. The third drop of ancient war dragon essence blood in his body suddenly awakened, causing Chu Fengmian's aura to skyrocket. He reached out his hand to grab Lin Jingshan. Swift Gale Shadow. Seeing Chu Fengmian's move, Lin Jingshan sneered and his body suddenly flashed. Chu Fengmian's grab actually missed and only caught a gust of strong wind. Little bastard. The Divine Sea Realm and the body-refining realm are two different realms. So what if you're strong? I'd like to see how you're going to break through this realm. Lin Jingshan laughed loudly and said. Even a warrior who had just broken through to the Divine Sea Realm couldn't compete with a warrior in the body-refining realm. Because the strength of the Divine Sea Realm wasn't just an increase in strength. It was the ability to control the spirits of the five elements that was truly terrifying. 9 Heavens Godly Wind. Lin Jingshan laughed loudly. Endless gusts of wind were drawn down from the 9 heavens and fell beside Lin Jingshan. Any one of these gusts of wind was much stronger than a warrior at the peak of the body-refining realm. Sure enough, the Divine Sea Realm is the true realm of martial arts. Little bastard, the humiliation I suffered today will be repaid 100 times by you. Lin Jingshan laughed crazily. Wind Spirit, go and suppress him. Countless gusts of wind suddenly swept towards Chu Fengmian and suppressed him. The strength of each wind spirit was stronger than a warrior in the body-refining realm. Now, dozens of wind spirits were attacking Chu Fengmian at the same time. They were no less than dozens of warriors at the peak of the body-refining realm besieging Chu Fengmian. Today, Chu Fengmian will definitely die. It's comparable to the joint attack of dozens of body-refining realm martial artists. Even if Chu Fengmian had 3 heads and 6 arms, he could only be suppressed today. Seeing Lin Jingshan display his might, all the Lin Mansion's disciples let out a sigh of relief. They had felt suffocated under Chu Fengmian's oppression. In particular, they didn't dare to imagine that Chu Fengmian, who had always been bullied and humiliated by them, would stand above them in the future. Humph, such a weak wind spirit. Lin Jingshan, you haven't even reached the first tier of the Divine Sea Realm. Disdain appeared in Chu Fengmian's eyes. These wind spirits were far inferior to those condensed by true Divine Sea Realm martial artists. At least, compared to the martial Flame Hall Master, Lin Jingshan's methods could only be considered immature. He was not familiar with the power of the Spirit Sea Realm yet. In Chu Fengmian's eyes, this kind of strength was like an ant. Break! Chu Fengmian's body suddenly moved, and a strong spiritual power burst out, condensed on the fist wind, and suddenly smashed towards the incoming wind spirit. Bang! 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 Almost in the blink of an eye, Chu Fengmian had punched out 37 times in a row. The 37 wind spirits that Lin Jingshan had just condensed were all shattered by Chu Fengmian's fist. These wind spirits, whose strength was comparable to the peak of the body refining realm, were easily broken by Chu Fengmian's fist like thin paper. How is this possible? These are wind spirits. Spirits of the 5 elements condensed by true Divine Sea Realm martial artists. How can they be broken by this kid so easily? Lin Jingshan shouted in disbelief. Originally, he thought that he would be able to easily defeat Chu Fengmian after condensing the wind spirit. But now, these wind spirits were all destroyed by Chu Fengmian's fist. Great Luo Immortal Wind Palm. Lin Jingshan didn't have time to hesitate. All the spiritual power in his body gathered on his right palm, turned into a breeze, and suddenly hit towards Chu Fengmian. The endless gale even contained wind spirits. This great Luo Immortal Wind Palm of the Lin Mansion could only be fully unleashed by Divine Sea Realm martial artists. This palm was dozens of times more terrifying than the one on the life and death platform. Dragon rages in the wild. The ancient battle dragon bloodline in Chu Fengmian's body was fully activated. Some scales appeared on his skin, making Chu Fengmian look like a half-human, half-dragon existence. After awakening 3 drops of ancient battle dragon blood essence, Chu Fengmian's body had taken a step closer to that of the ancient battle dragon. Break! Chu Fengmian faced Lin Jingshan and also punched out. Last time, Chu Fengmian was at a disadvantage when his fist and palm collided with Lin Jingshan's. This time, Chu Fengmian, who had condensed 3 drops of ancient battle dragon blood essence, wanted to clear his name from the previous battle. A fist and a palm collided in the air. Bang! There was an earth-shattering fluctuation and a huge explosion. Lin Jingshan's wind spirits were shattered by Chu Fengmian's fist. The entire palm print was broken into pieces. Lin Jingshan's chest was smashed open by Chu Fengmian's fist, and he fell to the ground. Lin Jingshan spat out a lot of blood from his mouth. The winner and loser could be seen at a glance. Defeated. The Mansion Master was defeated. Even a Divine Sea Realm expert is no match for Chu Fengmian. Is there really no one in the Lin Mansion who can defeat Chu Fengmian? Many disciples of the Lin Mansion felt a chill in their hearts. Their last hope had been dashed. Lin Jingshan, who had stepped into the Divine Sea Realm, was defeated by Chu Fengmian. Even a Divine Sea Realm expert was no match for Chu Fengmian. How terrifying was Chu Fengmian's strength. Come here. Chu Fengmian rushed towards Lin Jingshan and grabbed him. No! I don't want it. Lin Jingshan shouted crazily. If he were to become Chu Fengmian's prisoner, it would be worse than death. Lin Jingshan's body began to inflate as if it was inflated with air. Self-destruction. The last resort of a martial artist who had reached the Divine Sea Realm was to destroy his own body and spirit sea. Little bastard. Even if I die, I'll take you down with me. Lin Jingshan roared with a crazed look. If a Divine Sea Realm martial artist self-destructed, the entire Lin Mansion would be buried with him. Chu Fengmian would be no exception. Self-destruction? Did I allow it? Chapter 68. Chu Fengmian exuded a majestic aura. It was the true majesty of the ancient war dragon. Chu Fengmian grabbed Lin Jingshan and injected his aura into Lin Jingshan's body. Lin Jingshan's swollen body started to recover bit by bit. A black will appeared on Lin Jingshan's forehead. Heavenly Death Seal. After being hit by this seal, everything about you will be under my control. Even if you want to die, you can't. Chu Fengmian sneered and let go of Lin Jingshan. Chu Fengmian had already planted the Heavenly Death Seal on Lin Jingshan. The Heavenly Death Seal was a heaven-class martial skill. It was a martial skill created by an invincible almighty from ancient times. As long as a martial artist was hit by the Heavenly Death Seal, everything about him would be under the control of the caster. Lin Jingshan had already become Chu Fengmian's slave. Although he had his own thoughts, everything he wanted to do would be under Chu Fengmian's control. As long as Chu Fengmian was willing, Lin Jingshan could even commit suicide. From today onwards, the Lin Mansion will have a new look. Chu Fengmian thought to himself. The battle between him and the Lin Mansion Master was enough to attract all the disciples of the Lin Mansion. The second elder, the third elder, the young Mansion Master, Lin Chengfeng, and the others had already rushed over. Looking at the silent Lin Jingshan standing to the side, everyone was at a loss for what to do. Mansion Master, what happened to you? The second elder was the first to ask. The Lin Mansion Master's current state was definitely abnormal. He was standing beside Chu Fengmian and bowing slightly. He looked like Chu Fengmian's slave. Father! This little bastard is right here. Why don't you kill him? Lin Chengfeng shouted. Seeing Chu Fengmian appear in the Lin Mansion again, Lin Chengfeng was furious. He couldn't wait to kill Chu Fengmian. However, with his current strength, he was no match for Chu Fengmian. He could only hope that Lin Jingshan could kill Chu Fengmian. However, Lin Jingshan was still standing there in a daze after hearing their conversation. He did not move at all. What happened? Little bastard, what did you do to the Mansion Master? The second elder also sensed that something was wrong with Lin Jingshan and shouted at Chu Fengmian. Lin Jingshan's change was definitely related to Chu Fengmian. Suddenly, he saw the black mark on Lin Jingshan's forehead. Apparently, the mark had just appeared. You used demonic arts to control the Mansion Master? Damn it. You are a demon. Demon. He actually used demonic magic to control the Mansion Lord. The second elders by Lin, all disciples of the Lin Mansion, listen up. Attack together and kill this demon. Save the Mansion Master. Let's see who dares. By Chu Fengmian, by Fengmian. By who? It was of by Lin. However, none of the disciples of the Lin Mansion dared to stand up for Lin Fan. Even Lin Jingshan, the #1 warrior in the Lin Mansion, who had broken through to the Spirit Sea realm, had been defeated by Chu Fengmian and enslaved by him. Did the martial Dao that you Lin Mansion's disciples learn get eaten by dogs? You don't even dare to deal with a demon? Second elder shouted out in anger. Turning around, he looked at the Lin Mansion Master and lamented. Mansion Master, wake up. This little bastard has already dominated the Lin Mansion. The Lin Mansion of 1,000 years will be destroyed in a day. Second elder, I didn't want to attack you because you are my senior. But you are going too far by calling him a little bastard. Chu Fengmian's eyes were cold. The Lin Mansion can only be strong in my hands. The Lin Mansion now is just a little bigger than an ant. Only by gathering the strength of the Lin Mansion can the Lin Mansion grow. Bah! The Lin Mansion will be destroyed sooner or later if it falls into the hands of a demon like you. Just you wait, little bastard. The moment the first elder returns, it will be your death date. The second elder roared in anger. Oh? Even if the first elder returns, I would like to see if he can do anything to me. Chu Fengmian said sharply. Since the second elder said so, I will let you see it with your own eyes 3 days later. Lin Jingshan, capture him for me. 3 days later, let him see. Chu Fengmian shouted, and Lin Jingshan, who was beside him, suddenly attacked. Grabbing the second elder, he used his spiritual energy to completely seal the second elder's body. He tied the second elder up like a dumpling and fell to the ground. According to the rules of the Lin Mansion, I am now the mansion master of the Lin Mansion. Does anyone have any objections? Chu Fengmian looked around and said calmly. According to the rules of the Lin Mansion, the mansion master of the Lin Mansion was the most powerful person. Now, Chu Fengmian was undoubtedly the most powerful person in the Lin Mansion. I don't accept this. In the silence, a discordant voice suddenly sounded. It was unknown where the young master of the Lin clan got the courage to shout. Chu Fengmian, you are a demon. What right do you have to be the mansion master of the Lin Mansion? Moreover, you are not of the Lin family's bloodline. You are just a bastard. You can only be a servant. How dare you turn the tables? Lin Qingfeng shouted. His words were agreed by many disciples of the Lin Mansion. After all, Chu Fengmian was not a member of the Lin family. Naturally, many members of the Lin family were not satisfied with him being the mansion master. Chu Fengmian looked at Lin Qingfeng in surprise. He did not know what Lin Qingfeng was relying on to dare to speak up. However, when Chu Fengmian saw the jade token hanging on Lin Qingfeng's neck, he knew what Lin Qingfeng was relying on. Since you are not satisfied, you can die. Chu Fengmian said calmly as he threw a palm at Lin Qingfeng. Under Chu Fengmian's palm, a barrier suddenly appeared in front of Lin Qingfeng and blocked Chu Fengmian's palm. Protective Jade Token. There was also a protective jade token on Lin Qingfeng's body. It seemed to be left behind by the first elder of the Lin Mansion. Ha ha, little bastard, you can't kill me. 3 days later, when the first elder returns, it will be your death. Lin Qingfeng laughed loudly. This protective jade token was personally refined by the first elder of the Lin Mansion. It had been worn by Lin Qingfeng since he was young. He did not know how many times he had survived with this protective jade token. This time, he still believed that the power of this protective jade token was enough to stop Chu Fengmian. You're tuning into the Mythic Realms YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.